Chapter 232. After Kiki finished peeing, he yawned and went back with the bloody man in his hand. As soon as he opened the door, he found several pairs of eyes staring at him. The moonlight shining through the door was reflected in the eyes. Kiki was so scared that the sleepiness he had just woken up disappeared immediately. "What's wrong?" Kiki asked nervously. Although there were no torches in the room, everyone could see clearly what Kiki was carrying because of the moonlight. Not to mention, there was a strong smell of blood. Just now, when Xiao Xian blew the whistle, the people who were asleep all got up and silently approached the door, ready to go out and solve the problem if something really happened. However, they didn't hear Kiki's signal for help for a long time. Now it seemed that this guy had solved the problem. "What's that in your hand?" Tuo asked. He was worried that Kiki would kill the patrolling warriors of the drumming tribe. It was rare for them to meet a foreign tribe, and they had a cooperative relationship. It would be bad if Kiki made trouble at this time. "Oh, I don't know who it is." Kiki scratched his head and put the man down. He didn't know what to say. He didn't feel anything when he killed the man, but now he suddenly felt a little uncomfortable. At that time, he acted according to his habit. He didn't care whether it was a man or a ferocious beast hiding in the grass. He dealt with the man in the same way he dealt with the ferocious beast. After he finished, he found that this time was different. Before Kiki could answer, Xiao Xian went closer to have a look. The man was almost cut in half by Kiki's knife. The blood started from the woods and extended to here. "He's not from the drumming tribe," Xiao Xian said after seeing the man's appearance. "Not from the drumming tribe? Then who is it?" "He's not from Yinjiao either." Tuo went closer, not caring about the blood and grass. He searched the dead man on the ground, but found nothing. "Tomorrow, let the shaman and chief have a look. Or let the people of the drumming tribe have a look. They are more familiar with the tribes here. Let's see if they can confirm it," Xiao Xian said. Kiki answered and then climbed onto the wooden bed. He put his arms behind his head and stared at the dark ceiling. Seeing this, Xiao Xian thought that this was the first time Kiki had killed someone. So he asked, "Kiki, do you feel uncomfortable? Can't get used to it?" Hearing this, the rest of the people didn't feel sleepy anymore. They wanted to hear Kiki's next answer. Kiki kept silent for a few seconds, then said slowly, "No, what is that?" Someone couldn't help but ask. After all, they had no experience in dealing with people like this. Thinking about the upcoming battle, they wanted to learn from Kiki, who had just experienced it himself. Experience was something that warriors had always valued. "That is..." Kiki paused after saying 2 words. "What is it?" "I just feel... Why is this person so weak? It's not satisfying to kill him with 1 strike." Kiki said. Xiao Xian was speechless. This guy's old habit of looking down on people who could be killed with a single slash was back again. If the dead man heard this, he would be so angry that he would spit out blood. There were still a few days before the Water Moon Festival in the drumming tribe, and now the invaders had sent someone to investigate. The one sent here at this time was definitely not weak. At least, he was confident that he could avoid the patrols of the drumming tribe. However, he had triggered the warning system set by Xiao Xian in the forest. At the same time, Kiki, as a member of the advance group, had always gone all out when he met an enemy. He couldn't afford to be careless or slow down. This was the main reason why he killed the man with 1 slash. After chatting for a while, the warriors were too tired and fell asleep. Kiki also threw the man who was almost cut in half at the door. The next day, when the people of the drumming tribe came, they were shocked when they saw the scene at the door. They thought it was a civil war among the Yinjiao tribes. After hearing Xiao Xian's words, they became serious. To be on the safe side, they took the dead man with them and went to the chief of the drumming tribe with Kiki and Xiao Xian. Ao also went to check the situation. After carefully observing the dead man, Fan Mu shook his head and said, "I don't know which tribe he came from. The people of the drumming tribe didn't travel around as much as the people of the Pu tribe, so they only knew the tribes closest to them and the tribes that often attacked them. They didn't know anything else. He should be the helper of the drumming tribe this time." A man beside Fan Mu said he avoided the patrols outside. He could avoid the patrols outside, but he was easily killed by Kiki. Fan Mu and the shaman of the drumming tribe looked at each other and didn't say anything. They just had a new evaluation of the strength of the Yinjiao tribe's warriors, which could be seen from the slash marks on the dead man's body. Fan Mu and the others wanted to ask more about what happened last night, such as whether the enemy showed his totem or not, but Keek's answers almost made them suffer internal injuries. Too sleepy, didn't pay attention, don't remember. As the most outstanding warrior of the younger generation of the drumming tribe, Qing Yi looked at Kiki, who was scratching his ears and cheeks to recall the battle last night, and thought to himself. When Kiki was reenacting what happened last night, there was no murderous look on his face, nor in his words. There was only stupidity between his eyebrows, and no murderous look. Just by looking at the appearance, people of the Yinjiao tribe would definitely be more popular outside than the people of the drumming tribe if they didn't wear the very distinctive clothes on the first day. It was a matter of appearance. People of the drumming tribe generally looked more exaggerated. However, as a person who often led a team to trade, Qing, he had an instinct of dealing with different people. He could feel a kind of dangerous aura from Kiki, like the wild beasts in the deep mountains who would kill their prey once they set their eyes on it. Fan Mu asked for a long time, but still didn't get much useful information. So he gave up and said to AO, "It seems that we have to deploy as soon as possible." Yes, AO nodded. When the people of the drumming tribe and the people of the Yinjiao tribe were discussing how to deploy, hundreds of people of the drumming tribe gathered in a mountain not far from the border of the drumming tribe. The man in the lead was tall and thin, wearing black animal skin. On his face, a scar extended from his forehead to his jaw and crossed his whole face. Coupled with his gloomy eyes, he looked like a poisonous snake. He was the leader who led the drumming tribe to attack the drumming tribe and rob the water moonstones. Ji. The man in the lead was holding a half-meter-long knife made of animal bones, looking in the direction of the drumming tribe. After a short while, he heard something, so he looked back and raised his chin. "Finally here? I thought you gave up this good thing. I didn't expect you to still come. Let me be happy for nothing." Nearly 500 people came over. Although these people looked very ordinary, not as strong as the people of the drumming tribe, and not as murderous as the people of the drumming tribe, their footsteps were very light. This was not intentional, but a kind of habit, a habit cultivated since childhood. Among them, each totem warrior was holding a dagger-like long-handled weapon made of stone, animal bones, or beast horns. It's rare to have such a good opportunity. We of the drumming tribe certainly won't give it up. Among the people who came over, the leader laughed. As for the reason why we are late, we sent 2 people to the drumming tribe yesterday, but only one came back this morning. The man who was laughing just now, the smile in his eyes disappeared in an instant and was replaced by gloominess and fierceness. Such a rapid change was very strange. Ji frowned, and the scar on his face became more and more ferocious. "What do you want to say? You didn't tell us that the people of the drumming tribe found helpers," the man said angrily. "Helpers? Ji looked sideways at the leader of the drumming tribe, the corners of his mouth raised, and there was a trace of disdain in his eyes. "So what? If the drumming tribe is afraid, you can leave now. The drumming tribe never begged you to come with us, and we don't need it." In Ji's view, even if the drumming tribe found helpers, there would be some small tribes with little sense of existence in the periphery, and there was nothing to be afraid of. "In your dreams." The leader of the drumming tribe sneered. In fact, his idea was similar to Ji's. After all, this was not the central region. They didn't need to be careful in everything. He was just more cautious than Ji. Of the 2 people sent out, only one came back, and the other didn't come back at the agreed time. Obviously, something happened. We still have to be careful. It's good to send someone to inquire about it. The person I sent out to inquire only heard that they found helpers, but didn't find out who the helpers of the drumming tribe were. The defense of the drumming tribe is much tighter, and he couldn't go deep into the residence of the drumming tribe to inquire. "Enough." Ji impatiently interrupted the other party's words, saying, "Even if the group of Gorloks found helpers, who could they find? Look at how timid you are." The people of the drumming tribe thought, "Do you think everyone is as greedy and crazy as the people of the drumming tribe?" The people of the drumming tribe were just greedy, but they were also afraid of death. If they lost their lives, why would they want precious things? Ji looked at the people of the drumming tribe sarcastically and then glanced at other places on the mountain. On this mountain and the surrounding mountains, there were many people who wanted to play the game of mantis stalking the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Some people wanted to sneak into the drumming tribe when the battle was chaotic. Ji didn't intend to pay attention to these people. When they got all the things in their hands, they would deal with these weak and poor creatures. Ji took out a wooden whistle and blew it. Whoosh! A figure flew over the woods behind him and hovered in the sky twice, as if showing its heroic appearance to the people below. A kite trained by the feather tribe? The leader of the drumming tribe was surprised. Ji raised an arm and proudly looked at the bird in the sky, flying down and standing on his shoulder. This was a raptor nearly 1 meter high, with sharp eyes. When spread its wings, it looked bigger and more powerful. The bird's claws were so strong that the animal skin coat on Ji's arm was torn by the bird's claws, but Ji didn't care. This was the crown kite that Ji exchanged a lot of things from the feather tribe to inquire about the situation. It looked similar to other kites, except that it had a few fan-shaped feathers on its head, like the crown on a rooster's head. That was why it was called a crown kite. It was a popular bird among the birds domesticated by the feather tribe for trading. Chapter 233. This kind of bird in the feather tribe was usually exchanged by other tribes to help them find people or inquire about some simple information. It could also be used as an early warning. However, to exchange for this kind of bird, a lot of food was needed. If you used shell coins, you would need several bunches to exchange for one bird. And this kind of crown kite needed more things. It was expensive but very popular, especially in the central region. Maybe the failure made the drumming tribe a little worried. So this time, they didn't hesitate to exchange for a crown kite at a high price. The crown kite was good at inquiring about the situation. It was this crown kite that told Ji about the other people hiding in the surrounding forest. In addition, the crown kite was more powerful than the common kites. When the crown kite was there, many birds in the forest would avoid it. Even if they didn't, they wouldn't collide with it easily. Ji showed the crown kite standing on his arm to the drumming tribe people, and then said slowly, "It's up to us to inquire about the situation over there." The people of the drumming tribe agreed with Ji's action very much, thinking that this man was not so crazy as to be brainless. But he must have spent a lot of things to exchange for such a bird from the feather tribe. If it were their drumming tribe, they wouldn't exchange too many things for a bird. Ji said something to the crown kite and raised his arm. "Go!" The crown kite flew up and screamed, as if it was asking other birds around to make way for it. Looking at the figure flying to the drumming tribe in the sky, Ji's smile became bigger and bigger. It won't take long for it to come back and tell us about the situation in the drumming tribe. Unfortunately, as soon as Ji finished his words and the smile on his face didn't disappear, he saw the crown kite that flew into the territory of the drumming tribe hurriedly fly back here, flapping its wings hard, as if something was chasing it. If it was a beast running on the ground, it could really be described as pissing in its pants. The drumming tribe people looked at the crown kite flying back in the sky, and turned to look at Ji, who was standing there with a stiff smile on his face. Was this what he meant by, "It won't take long to know"? Wasn't it too fast? Anyone who saw such a situation would be suspicious. It was not the right way to inquire. Obviously, there was something wrong. Suppressing the anger in his heart, Ji took out the wooden whistle and blew it, trying hard not to crush it. After hearing the whistle, the flying crown kite stopped flapping its wings for a while, but it didn't mean to stop. It glided directly over their heads and disappeared in the blink of an eye. No matter how Ji whistled or called, the eagle didn't come out. Ha ha ha! The leader of the drumming tribe laughed out loud. He was happy to see the drumming tribe make a fool of themselves. After spending so many things, this was all he got in return. Pa! Ji was so angry that he crushed the wooden whistle. There's no need to investigate anymore. When the time comes, just charge. This time, he brought 200 more people than the last time he attacked the drumming tribe. They were all intermediate totem warriors and 2 more senior totem warriors. There were still some people at the foot of the mountain. Together with the people of the drumming tribe, there were nearly 2,000 people. It would definitely be easier than last time. they would definitely be able to snatch the water moonstone successfully. The total number of the drumming tribe was large, but there were not many people who were a real threat. Originally, the tribe had planned to send another 1,000 people, but Ji refused. The more people there were, the less credit he could get. After all, some of the things he brought back were trophies that could be kept by himself. They just wanted to snatch things, not to fight for territory. If the two tribes were to fight, it would be more than just these people. It was better to destroy the drumming tribe directly. No. If he destroyed the drumming tribe, where'd he get the water moonstone? Ji suppressed the idea in his heart. On the side of the drumming tribe, 2 more people were sent to the drumming tribe to inquire. This time, they didn't go deep, but they came back. They also found out that the reinforcements of the drumming tribe were called Yinjiao tribe. But that was all. How about it? I'll tell you. Ji had never heard of the Yinjiao tribe. It's just a small, unknown tribe on the periphery. Don't worry. Some people of the drumming tribe had heard of it, but not many, and they didn't think it was very important. They seemed to have heard of it in the last 2 years. But there was no such tribe in the central region. This time, the people of the drumming tribe were relieved. As long as there was no tribe in the central region, it was fine. They felt relatively easy and confident to deal with a small tribe on the periphery. Several days passed in the blink of an eye. The full moon finally came. For the people of the Yinjiao tribe, it was the first time for them to see such a spectacle in the drumming tribe. The muddy water became clear and transparent, and there were shining stones under the river. However, the people of the Yinjiao tribe didn't have much sense of value now. They just found the water moonstone fresh, and they couldn't eat it. Seeing the reaction of the Yinjiao tribe, the people of the drumming tribe finally felt relieved. They thought that the people of the Yinjiao tribe were all good people. Ao personally led some people to guard an area on the territory of the drumming tribe. This is our first battle here, and it's also a significant one. Our opponents are no longer the ferocious beasts in the forest, but the invaders from other tribes. They're the same as us. But what I want to say is, although the invaders are also humans and not ferocious beasts, I still hope you can treat them seriously like how you hunt ferocious beasts. Just like Kiki, let these invaders see the ability of the Yinjiao tribe. Let them remember how the Yinjiao tribe defeated them. Being praised by the chief in public, Kiki felt very proud. What's there to be proud of? When the time comes, I'll definitely hunt more than you. Tuo and the others secretly thought. Ao's gaze swept across the people gathered here and said solemnly, "The invaders are not my people. Kill the invaders. Kill." The people seemed to have returned to the time when they were in the tribe, standing on the top of the mountain before the hunt, mobilizing before the hunt. At this time, they really wanted to sing the hunting song, but the chief didn't allow it. After finishing his words, Ao waved his hand, and the people gathered here immediately scattered to different places. This was the arrangement they had made in advance. They were divided into hunting groups, and each group had its own place to be responsible for. Xiao Xian was assigned to Keek's group. They were all members of the advanced group, and later they would catch some powerful people, such as middle-level and senior totem warriors. It was the first time for them to face such a hunt. So many people were very nervous and excited. After holding back for so long, they could finally hunt. Hey! In the air, Cha-Cha had already warned. Then, not far away, there came the sound of the people patrolling outside the drumming tribe. This meant that the people over there had officially set off. Ao stood in the same place and didn't move. He quietly listened to the movements nearby, as well as some small sounds in the distance that were quickly approaching. Whoosh! An arrow from the other side of the forest was shot towards Ao, who was standing there, straight to his face. This arrow was carefully made, and the arrowhead was also polished with the best stone material, which could easily penetrate a tree trunk. The archer's archery was also very good. The arrow passed through the forest, but didn't touch a branch or a leaf. Instead, it caught a little gap that was difficult to find in the forest. However, when this fierce arrow was half an arm away from Ao, it was firmly caught and then thrown back. It almost followed the trajectory of the arrow, but after all, it missed Ao a little. Finally, with a tut sound, It shot into the trunk of a tree. Ji, who shot this arrow, looked at Ao, who was across the forest. His eyelids twitched, and a strong sense of crisis suddenly came to him. He was a senior totem warrior, and so was the person standing there, looking at the arrow that pierced into the trunk not far away. Ji looked at the other side of the forest and happened to meet Ao's eyes. Ao held the long spear in his hand, staring at the archer. The totem power in his body was running to the peak, and all the totem patterns on his body appeared. The flame-like totem patterns of senior totem warriors almost covered his whole body, extending to his fingers. A strong sense of foreboding spread all over his body. Ji immediately jumped down from the tree and left the original place. That kind of totem was definitely not from any tribe he had ever seen. This was the Yinjiao tribe? Ji thought in his heart. His thumb rubbed on the long handle, and then just like he had thrown it thousands of times in hunting, Ao threw the long spear in his hand. Fast! The long spear was like a sudden lightning, quickly passing through the gap between the trees, rubbing the bark of some trees on the way, and then penetrating the body of an invader who rushed over. The long spear went through his body, and the bright red blood was brought out with the long spear. However, the long spear didn't stop flying out like the blood, but penetrated 2 trees at a faster speed than the splashing blood, and went to Ji. However, Ji quickly changed his position, and the place where he was just now, another warrior of the drumming tribe passed by. After penetrating 1 person and 2 trees, the long spear pierced the body of the second invader, and finally nailed deeply into a tree as thick as a bucket. Wherever the spearhead touched, the bark and wood chips on the tree trunk exploded, producing a loud bang. Crack, 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 crack. That tree fell down. Seeing the situation over there, Ji was shocked. The Yinjiao tribe didn't seem to be as weak as they thought. Except for Ao's place, there were fights and killings everywhere else. Some people of the drumming tribe and the drumming tribe were really good at hiding, but for the Yinjiao tribesmen who often dealt with the ferocious beasts in the mountains and forests, this was really nothing. This was also the reason why Kiki sensed the opponent's position after receiving Xiao Xian's warning. Xiao Xian waved the stone knife in his hand, and the stone knife chopped down from the air turned into a gray lightning, going straight behind the grass in front of him. But when it was about to hit the grass, the wrist holding the knife slightly shook, and the knife suddenly changed its original route and stabbed into the grass. Seeing Xiao Xian's knife coming at him, the man picked up the stone tool in his hand, intending to block it. Unexpectedly, Xiao Xian suddenly changed his attack midway. He didn't have time to follow the change, and his forearm was pierced through by the stone knife. The knife quickly pierced through the arm bone and pierced the man's neck without stopping. Pulling out the knife, Xiao Xian looked at the other people in other places. Tuo beheaded an invader of the drumming tribe with 1 knife, without any slack. As Ao said, he treated every invader like how he faced the ferocious beasts when he was hunting. The burst of totem power, every swing of the knife, every attack was just like when he was hunting in the mountains and forests of the tribe. He didn't use the knife, but once he did, he used the strength to chop the ferocious beasts. Even the ferocious beasts with thick skin and hard armor would bleed if they were hit, let alone these unarmored humans. Tuo's knife was even more powerful than Keek's that day. The man who was hit by Tuo's knife didn't even have time to say a word before his body split open. Hot blood sprayed out, splashing on the ground, on the tree trunk, in the grass, and even on Tuo's body. Without stopping, Tuo quickly set his target on the second intruder. He waved his sword before Xiao Xian could. The blade quickly drew a horizontal arc in the air, and the second intruder was directly cut in half at the waist. The attack was executed in a single breath. The speed, the ruthlessness, and the ferocity of the saber completely exceeded the invader's imagination. Puff! The color of blood spread out like a red fountain. The man who was hit by the knife was still in the air, but below the waist he ran 2 steps before falling down. When Fu Shi came over with 2 warriors of the drumming tribe to check on the situation of the Yinjiao tribe, they happened to see this scene. They had seen many similar situations along the way, and it had already made them feel a chill in their hearts. Sucking in a cold breath with the smell of blood, and then looking at the violent man in the killing field who was abnormally calm, Fu Shi and the others suddenly felt the hair on their heads stand up. What kind of people were these? They were not inferior to the style of the drumming tribe at all. Even more terrifying, there was a kind of momentum that made people directly shrink back. The people of the drumming tribe also violently tore people apart, but when they saw the way the Yin Jiao tribe acted, they couldn't help but suck in a cold breath. Noticing the arrival of Fu Shi and the others, and after cutting down the third invader, Tuo looked back in the direction of Fu Shi and the others and smiled in a friendly way. However, because he was on the battlefield, his eyes flashed with a little bit of cold light. Taking a deep breath, and then another, Fu Shi and the others felt like they were poured with the coldest ice in winter, and their bodies were about to explode from the cold. The drumming tribe was bloodthirsty? Yes. The drumming tribe was more bloodthirsty? Of course it was. Then what about the Yin Jiao tribe? The people of the drumming tribe couldn't help but ask this question in their hearts. This was no longer a question of whether they were bloodthirsty or not. This was more like another level of killing. Looking at the stunned reactions of Fu Shi and the others, Xiao Xian actually felt very emotional. Before, he had thought that the people of the Yin Jiao tribe would be merciful because it was the first time they faced a fellow human invader, and that would cause some psychological and physiological reactions. However, Xiao Xian admitted that he was still too naive. From Keek's time, Xiao Xian knew that when facing the same kind, the so-called psychological and physiological reactions were almost non-existent. Here, there was only the tribe, their own people, and the enemy. This was probably deeply engraved in their blood since birth. Of course, this also included Xiao Xian's current body. These people of the Flaming Horns tribe were like humanoid weapons that had been locked up for a long time. In the past, they were only confined in unknown places to practice. But now, these humanoid weapons were finally released. Chapter 234. Whether it was Tuo or the other members of the Yin Jiao tribe, they all exuded a murderous aura that couldn't be ignored. It was so thick that it made people tremble. This was a group of hunters who wandered outside and were gradually forgotten by the world. They were a group of killing gods. They seemed to have walked out a sea of blood, their violent and tyrannical aura making people breathless. However, these people were very restrained. As long as they wanted, they could hide all their murderous aura in the next moment. These people were like human-shaped weapons that had suddenly been thrown into this area, and they caused numerous bloody and murderous intents. Seeing Xiao Xian and Tuo looking at him doubtfully, Fu Shi came back to his senses and swallowed his saliva. He said, "The chief asked me to come over and see if you need help here." Towards the end, Fu Shi didn't have enough confidence and was embarrassed to continue. "Do you still need help? Don't you see that the situation here is almost one-sided?" "Cough, you don't seem to need it," Fu Shi said embarrassedly. "Don't worry here. Fu Shi, you can take care of the people in the tribe who are harvesting the water moonstones. There should be people who have hidden very well, who have broken through. Even if the Yin Jiao tribe was in charge of this area, there would be people who broke through the defense line in other places. Just like before, there might even be other people who interfered. The drumming tribe was also not peaceful. Well, since you're fine here, we'll leave first." After saying that, Fu Shi took his people and ran away. As he ran away, Fu Shi thought to himself, "I told you not to worry about the Yin Jiao tribe people. Before, when I saw Xiao Xian's strength, I knew that the people in this tribe should be relatively strong." The chief was worried for nothing. These people of the Flaming Horns tribe were not weak. On the contrary, they were much stronger than they had imagined. If they were to fight against such a tribe, Fu Shi shuddered. However, with such a tribe as a helper, the drumming tribe was indeed much more relaxed this time. After Fu Shi left, Tuo shook off the blood on his knife. His body was also stained with a lot of blood, but he didn't bother to wipe it off. He went to the other side with Xiao Xian. No one had come here for the time being. It was a waste of time to just stand there. They needed to take the initiative to search. In the drumming tribe, there were many places with tall grass and dense shrubs. Many invaders who were good at hiding liked to wait in such places and wait for an opportunity. Xiao Xian walked into a bush that was taller than him and used his stone knife to push aside the weeds in front of him. He was vigilant of his surroundings. As long as there was the slightest movement, he would immediately slash with his knife. This was because most of the movements were caused by the hidden intruders. As he walked, two more people jumped out from the bushes. Xiao Xian was about to start, but Tuo stopped him, indicating that he should do it. Tuo was just about to use his saber when he saw a person rush out from the side. "I'll do it! I'll do it!" Kiki rushed over before Tuo could do anything. The stone knife in his hand chopped at the intruder in the front. 1 slash, 2 slashes, 3 slashes. The dense grass that was filled with the smell of grass was suddenly filled with the thick smell of blood. The invader who had been alive and kicking just a moment ago was now lying on the ground silently. In this place, except for their own people, all living creatures with attacking power were regarded as enemies. At this moment, in their eyes, these intruders were the same as all kinds of prey they had encountered when they were hunting in the forest. Although these intruders looked like them, the chief had said that all non-members of the tribe were the same. Of course, allies were different. Kiki didn't feel any pressure at all. Sometimes, Xiao Xian only felt that these people's thoughts were unbelievably simple. For many people, things that were difficult to adapt to were not a problem for them at all. After killing 2 intruders, Kiki ran away and continued to search for other intruders hiding in other places. Tuo was so angry that he chased after Kiki because his prey was robbed. He also wanted to rob Kiki's prey. How many prey they had hunted was to be reported afterwards. The chief had said that they would be rewarded according to their merits. Their team was in charge of this area and didn't say where they had a guard. Therefore, they only needed to find those intruders in this area and kill them. Xiao Xian didn't follow them, but continued to walk forward. As he approached the edge of the area they were in charge of, he ran into Mao, who was running towards him. Behind Mao, there were 3 people who were chasing after him. Judging from the weapons in their hands, they were all from the drumming tribe. Mao, who was running, suddenly turned around and chopped at the man who was chasing him the most. The man reacted quickly and blocked it with the weapon in his hand. Mao's knife had been chipped a lot because of several slashes. This time, the strong chop directly broke the knife from the middle. Mao threw the broken knife in his hand, and half of the knife pierced into the throat of the man who was chasing him. Mao didn't stop, but pulled out another stone knife from his waist. Looking at the 2 people who were chasing him, he bent his knees and bounced to the side, running towards them. Mao saw Xiao Xian, but he felt that he had the ability to deal with him. What he was doing now was to tell Xiao Xian not to interfere, and he would deal with it himself. Otherwise, if he felt that he couldn't handle it, he would run towards Xiao Xian instead of away. Xiao Xian wasn't worried. With Mao's current strength as an intermediate totem warrior, it would be difficult for him to fight against 3 people by himself. After all, they were also intermediate totem warriors. The Yinjiao tribesmen didn't seem to be easy to deal with. Instead, they ran away. It was just like encountering a fierce beast when hunting. If they couldn't beat it, they would run away. After running away, they would look for a chance to stab back, or even give a fatal blow. There was no doubt that the warriors of the Yinjiao tribe were calmer than the people of the drumming tribe. Their calmness made the people of the drumming tribe feel scared. When the people of the drumming tribe encountered similar situations, most of them would say, "I'm not afraid of you. Fight." This was because their eyes were red from killing and their emotions were out of control. And the people of the Flaming Horns tribe, just like Mao, ran away first. When the pursuers thought that he was going to escape to a safer place or look for his companions, they found that he turned around and slashed his blade, killing the pursuers one by one. They could always find the best chance to attack when others thought they were crazy and lost their minds. However, the people of the drumming tribe didn't know that when the people of the Yinjiao tribe were hunting in the forest, the more dangerous the situation was, the more frequently they would use their killing moves. If the people of the Yinjiao tribe didn't have a calm mind at that time, they would have died long ago. They didn't expect to be smart or flexible. They only needed to keep calm in the short time when the situation was critical. In this way, even if they couldn't kill, they could choose to escape unscathed. As Xiao Xian expected, Mao killed the pursuers very calmly. One strike, another strike, another strike. After that, there were several more wounds on Mao's body. But he didn't care. After applying some medicine, he ran to where his grandfather was. On Ao's side, after several unsuccessful attacks, Ji found that the people he was facing were very difficult to deal with. Facing Ao, it was like facing a towering ancient mountain. Standing in front of such a mountain, Ji suddenly felt that he was a little small. Ao's attack came without any warning. Just a moment ago, he was still walking slowly, as if he had left the battlefield and did not want to be a spectator. However, the next moment, he took a step forward like lightning. Under the stimulation of the totem power that had soared to the peak and the momentum of this step, he waved his arm like the long spear that had been thrown out just now. With the momentum of his step, he rushed towards Ao with a strong and fierce momentum that could break through everything. When Mao arrived, he just saw a figure being hit by his grandfather. Not paying attention to the figure that flew out, Mao looked around and found no other dangerous people. Then he went to Ao's side. "Grandpa, should we let them out?" Mao glanced at Ao and then quickly looked at the direction of his ship. Ao was silent for 2 seconds, listening carefully to the movements around, and then said, "Well, let them out to stretch their legs." Ao used this battle as the first training ground and the first whetstone for the Yinjiao tribe. Looking at the current situation, it was totally unnecessary to let those guys out. But it had been a while, and there were people outside the drumming tribe who were ready to make trouble, so it was better to end the battle quickly. With Ao's permission, Mao's eyes flashed with joy. He didn't stay any longer, and hurried away to let Ao continue. Looking at the man who was hit and was about to get up and run away, Ao frowned and clenched his fists. He was really tough. She just wanted to leave as soon as possible. The people of the Yinjiao tribe had a keen sense of danger, a fierce and decisive attack, and a savage and ferocious killing intent, which shocked him very much. Where the hell did this tribe come from? Ji was extremely horrified. And what did the young man say just now? Let them out. Who were they? The ominous feeling in Ji's heart grew stronger and stronger. Perhaps this operation was not as simple as he thought. Instead, it was carried out in a way that made them fearful. Mao, who ran out from Ao's side, avoided the sneak attack of the invaders. At this moment, he didn't want to fight, but picked up the leather whistle and blew it with a specific rhythm. Moer, Yang Guang, and his sister, and Lei, who were participating in the defense battle everywhere, had excitement in their eyes. Ignoring the wounds on their bodies, they avoided the blades of the invaders and ran away. While running, they blew their own leather whistles. For a moment, there were all kinds of whistles in several places where the Yinjiao tribe was responsible for defense. The sound of the leather whistle made by each person was slightly different from that of the wooden whistle, but the sound of each tamer's whistle was well known by those ferocious beasts with engravings. Several ferocious beasts, who were ordered to stay around the fleet, were pawing the ground and kicking their hooves out of boredom. Hearing the whistles, they sped up and ran towards their tamers. Chapter 235. Hearing Mao's whistle, Xiao Xian knew that Ao had decided to let those guys out. However, Caesar was not among them. Xiao Xian did not ask Caesar to come over. He asked Caesar to stay on the ship to protect Old Ku and the others. They also needed to be on guard. After all, the elderly, the children, and the women who had not awakened their totemic powers were all there, not to mention the shaman and the fire seed. After Mao blew the whistle, he was targeted by 2 more intruders. But this time, Mao did not kill them immediately. Instead, he led the 2 tails in circles. After a few circles, there were 3 tails. Suddenly, Mao stopped and stood there, looking back at the 3 tails who were chasing him. Because of Mao's sudden stop, the 3 people who were chasing him also stopped 10 steps away from him. The 3 of them targeted Mao because he was young. Such a young warrior should be easier to deal with, so they avoided those fierce-looking middle-aged warriors and chose this younger one. However, why was this young warrior not nervous at all when surrounded by the three of them, and there was no fear in his eyes? Was it a trick? The three of them were suspicious. Then they sneered in their hearts. What could such a young warrior do? Just when the three of them were about to rush over, they suddenly heard a sound and the ground was shaking. Dong, dong, dong. The sound was getting closer and closer, and the shaking of the ground was getting more and more obvious, indicating that a heavy object was approaching. What on earth was it? The three of them turned around and saw a tall figure running towards them from afar. The figure barged through the obstacles in front of him in a barbaric manner. Because of the speed of his running, the fats on his body were jiggling. Such a fast-running speed was totally incompatible with the fat on his body. It was like a chariot rushing over at high speed. What was that? The three of them were frightened. A wild boar without hair? No matter what it was not easy to deal with. Spread out. The three of them scattered in three directions. However, they underestimated the speed of Siya's change of direction. Bang, bang, bang. 3 consecutive collisions. Because of the sudden change of direction, the grass and soil were kicked up and splashed everywhere. When the grass and soil fell down, the 3 people who were planning to deal with Mao just now were nowhere to be seen. Only some splashed blood on the ground remained. After sending the 3 invaders flying, Siya was very excited. From the moment they left the tribe until just now, their hands and feet were tied. They were either locked on the ship or ordered to stay near the fleet. They were not allowed to run around at all. When they heard that there was a battle going on in the tribe, their hooves were itching and their claws were even more itchy. Looking at Siya, who was jumping happily, Mao grinned and jumped on Siya's back, waving his saber in high spirits. Let's go. Go and take the credit. Don't let others take it. Humph! Siya made a sound, which was a response to Mao's words. In another place, a warrior with a stone saber in his hand was running. He was a member of the drumming tribe. His original weapon was broken, and the stone saber he was holding now was actually picked up from a warrior of the drumming tribe who had been cut down by him. His injuries were quite serious. His waist and abdomen had been pierced by a sharp knife. Blood dripped down as he ran. The wound did not stop bleeding. From where he was injured to where he was now, there were bloodstains everywhere he went. He knew that he would not be able to get out alive this time, but he did not want to stay here peacefully. If he could kill a few more people, if he could get a few more water moon stones, it would be good to die with them. The more he thought about it, the more vicious his eyes became. They were filled with determination and madness. Killing one more would be good, but who should he kill? As he ran, he searched the surrounding bushes and grass, trying to find the one who had stabbed him. A chill suddenly rose from his spine. His movement slowed down, and his feet kicked a raised piece of soil. He staggered and fell down. When he was about to get up, he glanced at a figure coming over. That warrior looked very young. The blood and pain of the wound stimulated his brain, and his mouth raised a cruel smile. Just right, he liked to kill these young warriors in the tribe. However, before he got up, he found that the young warrior stopped not far away and no longer approached. He just stood there, as if he was waiting to see something. What was he looking at? Rustle, rustle. There were footsteps approaching. It was very close, almost next to him. Before that, he did not hear any movement at all. Under the moonlight, a shadow was cast on the ground. The approaching black shadow almost covered his whole body. Crisis, an extreme sense of crisis, dispelled the crazy thoughts in his mind. He felt that all the hair on his body stood up, and his teeth were uncontrollably clenched. He turned his neck stiffly and looked behind him. A big hairy claw appeared in his vision. Warm blood with the smell of blood sprayed above his head. He looked up little by little, and finally, he saw the owner of the shadow. Cave lion? Why was there a cave lion here? A beast? No, it was not. A beast would not have such a strong power. This was a ferocious beast. Without waiting for him to think more, the sharp fangs and the bloody mouth bit him. He had no power to resist. Ah! In the forest under the moonlight, a shrill scream rang out, startling the invaders who were hiding in other places and causing them to tremble. This was not a scream of being cut by a knife. What on earth had happened to it? Similar things happened everywhere in the area of the drumming tribe. At this moment, Not long after those engraved beasts left, at the place where the Yin-Jiao tribe's fleet stopped, a figure quickly rushed out of the woods, like a ghost, almost without any sound. The beasts around the fleet had run away, so at this moment, there were no ferocious beasts guarding the bank of the tributary where the fleet stopped. This invasion was much more difficult than before. As one of the best at hiding in the drumming tribe, he was one of the few who could smoothly break through the defense line. Originally, he wanted to go directly to the water moon channel of the drumming tribe to grab the water moonstones. However, after seeing the ships on this tributary, he came over. Looking at the big ships in front of him, the man was surprised and doubtful. Were these really not from the longboat tribe? Why were these ships so big? Except for the longboat tribe and those tribes who spent a lot of things to exchange for ships with the longboat tribe, who else could build these ships? After careful observation, he found that the trees used to build ships should be huge, so big that he had never seen them before. Even the chief of the drumming tribe should not have seen such a big tree, right? So, where did the people who own these ships come from? However, this question did not stay in his mind for long. He thought that since there were such big ships, there must be more good things in them. Maybe there were fire crystals? A look of greed flashed across his face. Because there were warriors staring at him, he decided to go through the water. At this time, the crocodiles of the drumming tribe had left. In his impression, the water was safe at this time. In order to invade the drumming tribe, the people of the drumming tribe had trained themselves well in the water, so it was not difficult for him to go through the water. He went into the water from another place, intending to get close to the biggest ship. In the biggest ship, there must be the most valuable things. Quietly entering the water, he swam towards the fleet from under the water. But as he swam, he found that the water around him was moving. It was not caused by him. What was it? Before he turned back, a big hook-like mouth bit over, clamped his waist, and then the big mouth closed. Blood spread out from under the water. The warriors standing on the ship looked at the dark liquid coming out of the water, as well as the swaying water waves, and moved their eyes to other places expressionlessly, looking for any possible intruders. As for the water, it was better to leave it to the turtle. At the water moon channel, the children of the drumming tribe were seizing the time to get the water moonstones, while the adults looked at them with tense nerves, in case someone suddenly appeared to rob them. But the strange thing was, until now, they had not seen a single intruder. Just now, they heard a scream from not far away, but other than that, they only heard the sound and did not see anyone. In the forest, the battle was still going on. Roar! A beast roar came from the forest. Before the others could think about what it was, another beast roar came. It was different from the previous one, and they could hear that it was made by two different beasts. Two beasts! The hidden people thought. But this was not the end. Then there was another roar and another. The forest was trembling. Like a report, the roars came one after another, and they all belonged to different beasts. At this time, standing not far from the drumming tribe, the people who were planning to follow the drumming tribe and the drumming tribe to take advantage of the situation stopped abruptly. The leader was a little fat. When he heard the beastly roars that penetrated the forest one after another, the fat on his face twitched continuously. His fingers that were holding the knife turned white, and the corners of his lips twitched violently due to nervousness. It was as if someone was slapping his face from the side. Before, they only heard that the drumming tribe had helpers and did not care at all. But now they had to care. "Leader, are we still going in?" A warrior behind him asked in a trembling voice. "Something seems wrong," the leader said in a low voice. Although he did not enter the territory of the drumming tribe to see it with his own eyes, he knew that the two tribes who wanted to rob the water moonstones were in trouble. It was not that he did not think that the drumming tribe would turn the tables and resist the joint attack of the drumming tribe and the drumming tribe. He had heard of some similar unexpected things before, but this kind of thing really happened to him, and he could not calm down in a short time. "Leader, look, there is a bird over there," a warrior said to the leader. A group of people looked over. On a high tree not far away, there was a white bird resting. To be exact, it was a falcon about the same size as Xi's crown kite. They had never seen such a white falcon, and it did not look like a wild one. "What is that?" Is it the bird that the drumming tribe exchanged from the feather tribe? Chapter 236. Many of these birds were used to scout the situation. Therefore, when these people saw this bird, the first thing they thought of was naturally the feather tribe's domesticated birds. Did it tell the drumming tribe about our actions? A warrior asked worriedly. They were more afraid of death than the drumming tribe. They didn't want to lose their lives before they could get anything. The leader cursed fiercely, venting the anxiety and dissatisfaction in his heart. "Give me the bow." Taking the bow from his subordinate, the leader pulled the bow into a full moon and stared at the white bird resting on the tree as if it was sleeping. His eyes were full of hatred. Whoosh! The bowstring vibrated. The arrow flew at high speed, making a sharp whistling sound due to the friction with the air. The leaves in front of the arrow were pierced and fell from the branches. Tut! The arrow was nailed into a tree branch. The tail of the arrow was still shaking. However, that was not the target he wanted to shoot. He thought the arrow would definitely hit the target, but it hit nothing. The bird that was standing there just now was gone. Where's the bird? The leader suddenly felt a strong sense of danger. There was something wrong with the drumming tribe. It was definitely not as simple as they thought. Could it be that the people from the central region were involved? On the surface, the tribes from the central region did not say that they would attack the drumming tribe, but who knew if they would do something secretly? Even if it wasn't the big tribes from the central region, if the other tribes from the central region attacked, they would still have to be careful. That bird, maybe it was brought by one of the central tribes? And the roar just now, maybe it was related to the people from the central region? Although he didn't know what happened in the drumming tribe, he was now sure that this was not something they could get involved in. Retreat! The leader threw the bow and shouted. But it was too late. A white shadow flashed by. The leader only felt a chill on his scalp. Something flew over his head. He didn't feel any pain. Only the blood that flowed out blocked his vision. Leader! Leader! Seeing their boss fall down with a piece of his head missing, everyone panicked and shouted as they scattered in all directions. Fear pervaded the forest, both inside and outside of the forest. The white bird shook off the blood and flesh on its claws and continued to find a tree to rest. It did not like to move at night and was chased out by Gigu to have a good night's sleep. However, it did not expect to be attacked. It was brought out of the green land by Gigu and was successfully branded by the shaman of the Yinjiao tribe. It would not attack the people of the Yinjiao tribe, but it would not treat the people of other tribes well. Just as he was about to continue resting, a figure suddenly flew across the sky. The white bird looked at the cha-cha, flying above it, then retracted its gaze and continued to rest. Within the drumming tribe, this invasion was nearing its end. It was shorter than any previous invasion the drumming tribe had encountered. All the water moon stones in the water moon passage had been scooped up, and the water gradually became murky. This time, the drumming tribe's harvest was huge. They produced more water moonstones than ever before. The adults protected the children and hurried home. Different from the joy of the drumming tribe's harvest, the invaders, who were still hiding in the forest and could not sneak in or evacuate, were shrouded in the shadow of death. Ao dragged a man and walked towards the center of the drumming tribe. Ha 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 ha! Ji, who was carried by Ao, laughed so hard that his face was distorted, as if he had gone crazy. They had planned to make a lot of money this time, but unexpectedly, none of the people of the drumming tribe and the drumming tribe could leave safely this time. The Yinjiao tribe was so powerful. Why had they never heard of it? Ji was puzzled. If he had only seen the battle of the Yinjiao tribe once, he would not have refused the decision to send 1,000 more people to the tribe. Unfortunately, this Yinjiao seemed to appear out of nowhere and gave the invaders a painful and unforgettable lesson with extremely fierce means. Ji had lost his ability to move now. He knew clearly what would happen if he was caught. The people of the drumming tribe hated him to the core. He controlled the totem power in his body, concentrated it in his heart, and then attacked. Puff! Blood spurted out from Ji's mouth, and he lost his breath. Ao lowered his head and looked at the dead man. His face did not change, and he did not stop walking. He continued to drag the man to the drumming tribe. If he gave this man to the drumming tribe, he might be able to exchange for more things. As for whether this man was alive or dead, it did not matter. Ao really had no feelings for people outside the tribe. Xiao Xian and the others were busy cleaning up. Suddenly, they heard an eagle cry in the sky, and then something was thrown down. The creature that fell on the ground flapped its wings twice, but its wings were injured, so it could not fly. If the people of the drumming tribe and the drumming tribe were here, they would definitely recognize that it was the crown kite that had bought from the feather tribe at a high price. It was the one that had gone on strike before, but now it was caught by Cha-Cha. At this time, it was no longer arrogant and mighty. It shrank like a quail. What kind of bird is this? It looks delicious. More food tonight. Kiki and the others gathered around. Xiao Xian picked up the kite, looked at it, and said, "Not now." Hearing that they couldn't eat it, Kiki and the others lost interest and continued to look for the hidden intruders. Xiao Xian knew that Cha-Cha must have something to do with the invaders. He would bring the bird to the people of the drumming tribe to see if they could get any useful information. If it was useless, then it would be an extra meal. The crown kite, which was bought by the people of the central region at a high price, was listed as food by the people of the Yinjiao tribe. When the sun rose the next day, the drumming tribe had already been cleaned up 3 times. Everything that needed to be cleaned had been cleared. It's over. It's over. The people of the drumming tribe could not believe it. They were still in a trance. They thought it would be a fierce defensive battle. They wanted to delay until the crocodiles came back. However, it turned out that they had underestimated this Yinjiao tribe. Although there were losses and casualties this time, it was much better than the disastrous situation they had expected. The Yinjiao tribe also suffered casualties this time. They lost 2 warriors, and several were seriously injured. However, this situation was just like going out to hunt. It was all part of their plan. They held a funeral for the dead and watched as their bones were swallowed by the fire seed's flame. The tribe would not let the dead warriors be buried in the wilderness. Instead, they would burn them in the fire seed's flame according to the old method. The shaman said that in this way, the souls of the warriors would be integrated into the fire seed and return to their homeland with everyone. In order to thank the Yinjiao tribe for their help, the chief and shaman of the drumming tribe gave them 10 baskets of water moonstones. These were all gifts from other families, and they were the biggest and brightest. The baskets used to hold the water moonstones were several times bigger than the baskets used by Chunjia and the others. Ao accepted all of them without hesitation, including many pottery. Although there were already people in the tribe who could make their own pottery after coming here, the people of the Flaming Horns tribe still cherished these things that they didn't have before. After a battle, they had to rest for a few days. The Yinjiao tribe stayed in the drumming tribe for a few more days. During these days, they encountered some trouble. The returning crocodiles were very wary of the few fierce beasts. They often surrounded the fleet in groups. If they were not stopped, they would have gone down a fight. Among them, the snapping turtle was the most special one. Perhaps because it used to live in the same river, it could get along with the crocodiles peacefully. When everyone calms down, let's leave. Ao said, "Okay, where are we going after this?" The shaman asked. No one spoke. After a while, the shaman called out to Xiao Xian, who was talking to a crocodile below. Xian! Xiao Xian, who was talking to the black-eyed mute crocodile, raised his head. He knew that the shaman had something to discuss, so he patted the crocodile's rough head. "Go play by yourself. I still have things to do." Then Xiao Xian was about to leave, but the crocodile bit the corner of his trousers. The mute even rolled a few times. Different from the death roll, when tearing up food, this time the crocodile rolled more gently. "What's wrong?" Xiao Xian looked at the crocodile shamelessly in the water. After a few more rolls like this, his trousers would be completely ruined. Letting go of Xiao Xian's trousers, the crocodile looked at Xiao Xian and then swam to the deeper part of the river. Xiao Xian got on the boat and discussed the next route with the shaman. After the discussion, when he got off the boat, he was blocked by the mute black crocodile again. This time, it did not bite Xiao Xian's trousers, but opened its mouth to Xiao Xian. "Is it stuck in your teeth?" Xiao Xian was not afraid that the crocodile would bite him directly. Under the nervous gazes of Kiki and the others, he calmly approached the crocodile to have a look. There was no meat, but there was a bowl-sized stone. The muddy gray stone was the same as the stones at the bottom of the rivers in the drumming tribe. It seemed to be a very common stone, nothing special, and its shape was also irregular. A stone? Xiao Xian was confused. It's a gift for you. Fu Shi, who came here under the orders of the chief, smiled. A gift for me? Xiao Xian did not understand the customs here. Treasure fish will give gifts to people who help them, and the gifts are the stones they bring back. You know, treasure fish leave every year during the rainy season and come back when the river rises after the full moon. I heard from the shaman that when they come back, they will also bring back some stones and spit them at the bottom of the water moon canal. And some of these stones will become water moon stones in the future. If someone in the tribe gets a stone from the treasure fish, they will put it in their own section of the water moon canal. When the full moon comes, the stone will become a water moon stone. Fu Shi told Xiao Xian everything he knew. Xiao Xian took the stone out of the crocodile's mouth. This stone will become a water moon stone. I heard that as long as it is placed in the water moon canal, it will become a water moon stone. Fu Shi said. In other words, to become a water moon stone, this stone must be placed in the water moon canal of the drumming tribe. Moreover, the success rate was not 100%, and there was no definite time. However, Xiao Xian did not insist on turning this stone into a water moon stone. He was still very happy about this special gift. The year you left, it left with the group for the first time. When it came back, you also went back to the tribe. Fu Shi said, so this time, it finally saw you again, so I wanted to make up for the gift. Thank you. I will keep it well. Xiao Xian said. Chapter 237. Putting the stone into the animal skin bag, Xiao Xian looked at Fu Shi and asked, what's the matter? Oh, yes, there's something. When he saw Baoyu give a stone to someone, he was so focused on that he almost forgot about the chief's order. Because the crisis of the drumming tribe had been resolved, there wouldn't be any big changes for at least a year. Hearing that the Yinjiao tribe would leave in a few days, the chief Fan Mu planned to invite several important people of the Yinjiao tribe to a banquet. This was the custom of the drumming tribe. For important guests, they would take out the best food to show their gratitude. However, there were too many people in the Yinjiao tribe, so they couldn't invite all of them. Therefore, they only invited the senior leaders of the Yinjiao tribe and the warriors who had played an important role in this incident. As for the others, although they couldn't go with them, they would send some food. Xiao Xian took Fu Shi to see Ao and the shaman. They also agreed to go to the central area of the drumming tribe that night. The reason why the banquet was held at night instead of during the day was that Fan Mu wanted to use the water moon stone to show his respect. In the evening, Ao selected 50 people to go with the shaman. Xiao Xian was among them. Probably in order to take care of the Yinjiao tribe, there were many water moon stones as light sources from the fleet to the place where the banquet would be held, so that the people of the Yinjiao tribe could see the surroundings clearly. At this time, the moonlight was enough, and the light of the water moon stones was not inferior to the moonlight. Walking in the forest, Xiao Xian felt like he had turned on a street lamp. There was an open space in front of Fan Mu's house. There were big fires on the ground. Food was being roasted on the fire, and soup was boiling in a big pot. Water moon stones were piled on the wooden pillars around, illuminating the surroundings. It was a very simple banquet, but it was considered grand here. The warriors of the Yinjiao tribe didn't mind such a banquet. When they were in the tribe, they would sit in a circle around the fire, roast food, and chat. Naturally, they wouldn't feel uncomfortable. At this dinner, in addition to expressing his gratitude, Fan Mu also asked the Flaming Horns tribe if they needed to go to the Pu tribe to trade. Every year, shortly after the Water Moon Festival, the drumming tribe would send a trading team to the Pu tribe to trade for something. When the Yinjiao warriors heard that they could go to other tribes to see the trade, their eyes lit up as they looked at Ao, hoping that Ao would agree. Ao was silent for a few seconds as he chewed on the meat. Then, he said, there's no need for all of them to go. Just 10 of them will do. As he spoke, Ao picked 10 people on the spot, including Xiao Xian. After all, Xiao Xian was familiar with the situation there. Ao felt more assured with him around. Chief, me too. Kiki, who was not named, hurriedly reminded him. Ao glanced at him and said nothing. He always felt that this guy was unreliable. Kiki did make a lot of contributions in this defense battle. The number of prey, he reported, was in the top 5. The people of the Yinjiao tribe wouldn't lie about the number of their prey. They didn't dare to. In his mind, when facing the chief, shaman, and team leaders, there was no such thing as lying or false unless one didn't know how to count. Generally speaking, the number of prey reported was true and trustworthy. Kiki had made such a great contribution to himself, but he was not allowed to trade with them. He felt a little sad. When the banquet ended and the people of the Yinjiao tribe returned, Kiki was still pestering Ao, tried to persuade him to agree. Before leaving, Xiaoxian was one step behind Ao and the others. He asked Qing Yi, the leader of the trading team of the drumming tribe, about the current situation of the Pu tribe. When Xiaoxian finished his inquiry and left, Ao and the others had already returned to their resting places and were ready to sleep. Xiaoxian walked alone in the forest. The water moonstones around him hadn't been put away yet. They were lined up on one side like street lamps, and the shadows of the branches swayed on the ground. Looking up, Xiaoxian looked at the night sky. 2 moons had begun to fade, hanging in the dark sky. There were no stars around. There were no electric lights, no pollution, no mechanical tools, and no comfortable hotels. What he breathed in was a slightly moist air with the smell of the forest. What he could see was endless nature. The night wind blew, and the leaves on the trees around him rustled. Xiaoxian could clearly feel the changes in the airflow when the wind hit the trees. Closing his eyes without sight, Xiaoxian's other senses became more sensitive. He could hear the friction between the leaves, the laughter of the drumming tribe people in the distance, and the sound of crocodiles swimming in the pool. The changes in the wind speed, the direction of the airflow, and his sensitive senses allowed Xiaoxian to distinguish the trees around him and where there were obstacles. He didn't need to see to know where the way out was. He lifted his foot, 1 step, 2 steps. He avoided the tree trunks, bypassed the bushes, and stepped over the protruding soil on the ground. Xiaoxian walked faster and faster, smoother and smoother. Everything around him had already formed a 3-dimensional picture in his mind. From this picture, he could accurately determine where the obstacles were. He even had a feeling that if he wanted, as long as he had enough time, he could even count how many branches were as thick as an arm on the 10-meter-tall tree next to him. He could even count the number of leaves on each branch. He could do it. This feeling was getting clearer and clearer. Maintaining this state, Xiaoxian slowly blended into the natural forest. In this unfamiliar forest, he closed his eyes and walked freely. As he walked, Xiaoxian noticed that on the 3-dimensional picture formed in his mind, there were light spots. Most of them were slightly further away from him. Those moving light spots were faintly white, similar to the water moonstones. Were those people from the drumming tribe? Feeling carefully, Xiaoxian could vaguely feel some familiarity. Fu Shi, Qing Yi, Fan Mu, and some others. Some of them were at the place where the banquet was held, and some were patrolling in the forest. There was only one exception. In front of him, there was a moving light spot coming this way. This light spot was not like the white of the drumming tribe, but an inconspicuous gray. If one was not careful, it would be easy to miss this light spot. Not from the drumming tribe? Very strange. Naturally, it was not from the Yinjiao tribe. Then who was it? Xiaoxian opened his eyes and looked forward. There was almost no sound of footsteps, but the other party was approaching. Xiaoxian stood in the same place, holding the hilt of his knife, quietly looking over there. Probably because he had discovered Xiaoxian, the other party no longer hid his movements. His footsteps gradually became louder, but he also controlled the sound and rhythm, just like the speed and sound of the patrolling members of the drumming tribe. A strong figure came out. Looking at the figure, it was similar to many of the warriors of the drumming tribe, and also dressed like them. "Are you from a Yinjiao tribe?" The other party's rough voice was casual and familiar, just like the other members of the drumming tribe treated the Yinjiao tribesmen. As the other party slowly approached, Xiao Xian also saw his face clearly. It was a very standard appearance of the drumming tribe. "Are you from the patrol team? What's your name?" Xiao Xian asked. The other party smiled, seeming a little embarrassed to speak. "I'm just haha lazy, so I came out for a walk," the other party said, but his words slowly slowed down. Finally, he stopped before he finished his sentence. "So sharp." The other party looked at the knife in Xiao Xian's hand, and then looked at Xiao Xian's defensive posture without any suspicion. He also understood that he had been recognized, so he no longer wasted time making up excuses. Even the tone of his voice changed. "Actually, I'm just here to watch the fun," he said. It was impossible to tell his age or gender from his voice. Crack, 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 crack. With the soft sound of bones cracking, Xiao Xian noticed that the other party's figure was changing. He had gone from being tall and strong to being thin, as if he had been deflated. His face was also changing, no longer looking like a member of the drumming tribe. Bang! There was a muffled sound like a wooden stake falling to the ground. The other party suddenly stomped on the ground. His legs, which had become as thin as firewood, seemed to have the strength of steel. The shockwaves caused by the powerful force shot out from where his feet touched. The weeds on the ground were violently torn apart, breaking into tiny pieces. The slightly dry and hard pieces of soil between the weeds were instantly pulverized into dust. The other party stomped on the ground and rushed straight at Xiao Xian. His entire leg was like a cold, worn knife, drawing an arc in the air, bringing with it a strong force that cut through the air towards Xiao Xian. Xiao Xian did not intend to take this kick head-on. Instead, he chose to retreat and avoid it. After missing the kick, the other party did not stop. Like a poisonous snake, he stomped on the ground and bounced up again, as if he was going to attack again. However, to Xiao Xian's surprise, after this stomp, the other party's figure disappeared from where he was. He did not hide, he really ran away. Xiao Xian was speechless. From the moment the other party was exposed, he had only taken 2 steps. In the first step, he kicked towards Xiao Xian. His momentum was as fierce as the claws of a beast, the fangs of a poisonous snake, as if he wanted to fight to the death with Xiao Xian. However, in the second step, he suddenly changed his style and ran away like a bolt of lightning. Xiao Xian did not chase after him. The other party's actions were strange, and he ran away quickly. It would not be easy for him to catch him. Moreover, the other party was not weak. Furthermore, that person gave Xiao Xian a feeling that he did not have any murderous intent. Even when he kicked out, it was just power, but there was no real murderous intent. He just opened his mouth and revealed his sharp teeth and claws, scaring people into retreating immediately. Xiao Xian looked in the direction of the other party's disappearance, wondering who he was. When he was in the drumming tribe, he also met people who were good at disguising and hiding, but they were not from the drumming tribe. Was this the robber that the people of the drumming tribe once talked about? His purpose was to steal the water moonstones? But it should not be. There were so many along the way, and none of them were missing. So, as he said, he was just here to watch the fun? Encountering a suspicious person, Xiao Xian naturally would not hide it. He took out the wooden whistle and blew it. The patrolling members of the drumming tribe, who were closest to him, came over. On the Famu tribe's side, people who had not left heard the whistle and also came over to Xiao Xian. They did not understand the whistle of the Yinjiao tribe, but they knew that if it was a small matter, Xiao Xian would not blow the whistle. Not only the people of the drumming tribe, but also the people of the Yinjiao tribe who had just returned to their temporary residence, immediately got up. However, they did not go to Xiao Xian, but vigilantly looked around. They knew what Xiao Xian meant from the whistle. They just needed to be vigilant. There was no need to go over. Chapter 238. Xiao Xian told the drumming tribe about his encounter with the strange man. After the people of the drumming tribe carefully inspected their territory, they hurriedly counted their own water moon stones to see if they had lost any. This had happened many times in the past. They thought that the strange man must be a robber, but after checking, they didn't find any missing water moonstones, so they were relieved. Every year, some water moonstones were stolen, but they couldn't catch the culprit. They could only guess, but other than the robbers, They couldn't think of anyone else. The robbers were a very special tribe. The members of the tribe were relatively independent and didn't live together all year round. This tribe was very mysterious. The drumming tribe had limited information, so Xiao Xian couldn't get more information from them. It wasn't stolen. This time, it shouldn't be a robber, right? Fu Shi's wife Ping said, I'm not sure. No one knows who he is. We can't find him. Fu Shi sighed. After the discussion, they found that no one's water moonstones were stolen this year, so they went back. Xiao Xian didn't stay too long either. After the drumming tribe people left, he also left. He found that the shaman of the drumming tribe didn't look too good, but since he didn't say anything, Xiao Xian couldn't force him to tell. He just guessed that if it was really a robber, they must have stolen something. This time, no one else's water moonstones were stolen. Could it be that the shaman's water moonstones were stolen? Xiao Xian didn't know, but he guessed right. After the drumming tribe people left, the shaman of the drumming tribe called the chief over for a private conversation. This year's water moonstone was stolen. The shaman of the drumming tribe said with a cold face as he looked at the empty box. Every year, after the water moonstones were harvested, they would pick out the biggest one and give it to the shaman to judge. Then they would choose the biggest and brightest one with the best quality. It was also called the Water Moon King Stone by the people of the drumming tribe. This stone would not be taken out for trade. Instead, it was kept by the shaman as one of the offerings during the ceremony. But now, the king stone was lost. The shaman's house was heavily guarded. Even the drumming tribe and the drumming tribe couldn't sneak in and steal the king stone. Sure enough, it's a robber. However, the robber who came this time is ranked higher, Fan Mu said helplessly. If Xiao Xian hadn't told them about the abnormality today, perhaps they wouldn't have realized that the Water Moon King Stone was missing until the ceremony. Choose another one in secret, the shaman said. In the past, the stolen Water Moonstones could not be recovered. Now that there was a higher grade one, it was even more difficult. Perhaps the other party had already left the drumming tribe. That's the only way. At the same time, a figure escaped the search of the drumming tribe and left the area. After leaving the territory of the drumming tribe, they ran for a while before sitting down on a stone at the foot of the mountain. What? Have we been discovered? A surprised voice came from behind him. Judging from the voice, it was a woman, but her age couldn't be determined. The man sitting on the stone didn't turn his head and continued to beat his legs. Don't mention it. I met a strange guy from the Yinjiao tribe. He recognized me at a glance and almost attacked me. Fortunately, I ran fast enough. If we really fought, I would have been delayed by him. When the Yinjiao tribe arrived, I wouldn't have been able to get away. The Yinjiao tribe again? I've never heard of them before. They suddenly appeared, and their strength is not weak. Although they can't be compared with the big tribes in the central region, they can't be underestimated. What's more, they have several ferocious beasts, the woman said in surprise. After a pause, she asked, Did you get it? The man sitting on the stone took out a leather bag from his animal skin coat and took out a shining stone. It was like a high-wattage light bulb, illuminating the surroundings instantly. This was the Water Moon King's Stone stolen from the drumming tribe. I originally wanted to go to the Yinjiao tribe's ship to have a look. Maybe there are many good things. What a pity. The man sitting on the stone said regretfully as he beat his legs. This Yinjiao tribe is interesting. Should we follow them? The woman said with interest. That's fine, but we have to stay away. The previous method didn't work. I have a feeling that it might work in other tribes, but not in this tribe. As far as I know, a few idiots have already started to act according to the old method. The woman's voice had a hint of ridicule. Oh, then let's wait and see how they die. At least they can make room for the people behind them, the man sitting on the stone said lightly. The Yinjiao tribesmen didn't know that they were being watched. Even if they knew, they wouldn't be afraid. In the next 2 days, Xiao Xian took 10 people from the Yinjiao tribe and went to the Pu tribe with the trading team of the drumming tribe. They exchanged a lot of things with Zhao. Even if they didn't need them, others in the tribe might need them. After coaxing and pestering, Ao finally agreed. Kiki also followed them to the Pu tribe. For him, things that were rare in other people's eyes were not at all attractive to him. except for those fat frogs that jumped everywhere. If he hadn't promised Ao that he would listen to Xiao Xian's words and not touch the frogs of the Pooh tribe, he might have secretly taken away some of the fat frogs of the Pooh tribe and eaten them. Now, the surrounding tribes all knew that in order to deal with the crisis, the drumming tribe had found help from a tribe called Yinjiao. It wasn't a famous tribe. However, this time, the people sent by the drumming tribe and the drumming tribe were almost completely wiped out. Even a bird didn't come back. Therefore, when they saw the Yinjiao tribesmen who came with the drumming tribe, everyone was curious. However, the Yinjiao tribesmen didn't feel that they were being watched at all. They just did what they should do and asked questions whenever they had doubts. Gradually, they became familiar with this kind of trading. The chief said that they would also need this kind of trading in the future, so they had to master it. In addition to the frog poison and other things from Xiao Xian also exchanged some fishing nets from the Luo tribe, who arrived at the Pooh tribe on the same day as them. When they sailed, they could catch some fish. Here, unlike in a hunting forest, they could get whatever they wanted on the spot. In a place dominated by human tribes, they had to exchange a lot of resources and store them in their hands. They could use them whenever they needed, which saved more time. After returning from the Pooh tribe, the Yinjiao tribe was ready to set off again. When they left, many people of the drumming tribe came to see them off, led by Fan Mu and a shaman of the drumming tribe. In addition to people, there were also groups of crocodiles. Those crocodiles probably came together to cheer. After all, the ferocious beasts that troubled them had finally left. There are some smaller groups of tribes ahead. They may shoot arrows to harass us. Be careful, Xiao Xian said. The warriors of the Yinjiao tribe, standing outside the cabin, were all holding wooden and stone shields to defend against the arrows. However, when the boats sailed past, they didn't see any arrows. Xiao Xian thought about the reason and suddenly felt like laughing. He remembered a joke from a friend in his previous life. You used to drive a shabby car and you dare to crash. Now that you have a luxury car, you don't dare to crash? When Xiao Xian was on a raft, he was constantly harassed by arrows. Now he was on a boat, but he didn't see any arrows. The people hiding behind the trees on both sides of the river didn't take any action. They weren't stupid. They knew who they could mess with and who they couldn't touch. In the early morning, the surrounding air was a little humid. There were mountains of different heights and forests on both sides of the river. However, compared with the hunting ground, it was much inferior. In the past, when they were still on the other side of the river, they could climb thousands of feet high cliffs and climb over high mountains in the hunting ground. That was a kind of conquest. But here, the mountains were not as high as in the hunting ground, and the beasts here were not as strong as in the hunting ground. However, there were people here, other tribes, and more challengers. Here, the threat of people was far greater than that of the high mountains and fierce beasts. Ao's purpose was achieved. After the incident in the drumming tribe, the people of the Yinjiao tribe had a preliminary understanding of life here, and their mentality had changed. A new challenge, a new life, they had to adapt to conquer. Xiao Xian stood at the bow of the boat and told Ao and the two team leaders about the news he had heard from the Pooh tribe. In the past 2 years, which tribes had disappeared, and which tribes had no sense of existence before. By the way, Yin Shua asked me if I could bring some of his acquaintances here. Xian, what do you think? Ao asked. Bring them, not only here, but also the wanderer friends of Yin Ji and the others in the Longboat tribe. We can pick them up when the time comes. Although they don't have strong fighting power, they can help us in other ways. Ao nodded. In this case, you go with Yin Shua and the others to bring them here. Okay. And Chief, our tribe is back. The wanderers in Yinjiu may feel it, Xiao Xian said. Speaking of the wanderers in the tribe like Yin Ji and the others, Ao was refreshed. Indeed, even if they hadn't reached the old land and lit the fire there, maybe they could meet many wanderers of the Yinjiao tribe. Chapter 239. Originally, Xiao Xian planned to go with Yin Shua to bring the wanderers who were with Yin Shua. In the original plan, they didn't go through there. There were too many forks in the river, so the tribe's fleet would go through another waterway. But before they left, the shaman stopped the people who were about to leave. The shaman wanted the fleet to go to the place where Yin Shuo used to live. Xiaoxian told him that there were many wanderers and slaves who lived a hard life there. Let them go and have a look. This was what the shaman said at that time. He wanted the Yinjiao tribesmen who had been isolated outside to see the wanderers who lived in the cracks. They wanted to see the two lives of others after the tribe was destroyed, wanderers and slaves. The shaman wanted to teach the Yinjiao tribesmen a lesson. Since they crossed the river, the shaman's presence was much lower. When they were in the tribe, many things were decided after the discussion between the chief and the shaman. But after they came here, the shaman rarely intervened. Most of the time, it was Ao who commanded in the front. Now, the shaman rarely expressed his opinion, so naturally no one objected. The fleet took a long detour. From the original plan, they came to the waterway that the traveling team of the Pu tribe often traveled. On the land next to the Y-shaped river fork, the slaves were called to work early in the morning. There were many large and small bamboo rafts on the river. These were the slaves who were fishing. When they were there, the wanderers didn't dare to fight with them because they would be besieged. Some supervisors with whips on the shore stared at the river to prevent anyone from being lazy and also to guard against the wanderers. These supervisors were only a little better than the slaves at the lowest level. They weren't at the level of titled slaves, but at least they had some more power from the slave owners. They were stronger than those who hadn't awakened their totem power. Staying here was also a deterrent to the wanderers who were ready to make trouble. Those who could climb from the lowest level to the supervisor level were all ruthless people. It could be seen from their eyes that they were ruthless. A little further away from the slaves, some wanderers also began to work. A few wanderers who were dressed better than the others yawned and walked slowly to the river. They drank some water and washed their faces with the river to wake up. Looking at the slaves who had already started working, the leader spat in that direction. "Boss, recently, some of the travelers have started to move again, right?" Someone asked. "If there are more travelers, we can also get some work from the slaves," another person said. The leader stood up and wiped his face. "Keep a close eye on it. Don't let anyone steal it." Now, in the Wanderers area, the only people who could fight against them were the people that Yin Shuo had brought with him. The two sides had not directly killed each other, but they were both on guard against each other. "Didn't you hear that they would leave in the future? Go to Yin Shuo's tribe." Someone said. "Leave? Chi." A bearded man next to him sneered, mocking those words. "They can only talk about it here. How long can they live if they really leave this place? Perhaps in less than 2 days, they will be eaten by wild beasts or killed by people from other tribes." "Not bad." The leader nodded in agreement. "Let's not talk about whether they have the ability to leave. Even if they can leave, who knows what Yin Shuo's tribe is like? The wanderers live under the control of the tribe. It's even more difficult. The people of the tribe will kill whoever they don't like, especially those small tribes that lack food. They may even treat the wanderers as food. It's not like we haven't seen it before. If you want to go to the big tribes, those in the central region." "What do the big tribes in the central region look like?" a younger man asked. The leader suddenly felt proud. He raised his chin and signaled the people next to him to make way. He went over and sat on a high stone. Then he talked about some of the scenes that he had seen when he was drifting outside. In fact, there were many scenes that he couldn't remember. It was too vague, but it didn't matter. He just needed to scare these people. Especially the longboat tribe. They're the real strong people on the water. Their boats are much higher than our houses. They are not like the simple rafts that the slaves use. They are just some simple rafts, and they even leak. The traveling tribes around are not so good either." As he was talking, the leader suddenly realized that after talking for so long, the others didn't react at all. Not only that, but they were also looking at other places. Were they looking at the slaves who were fishing with nets on the water? "What are you looking at?" the leader said discontentedly. "No, boss. There are boats over there." A man pointed tremblingly. "How many times have I said that the boats that the slaves use can't be considered boats?" The leader was even more discontented. "Really, boss? Then it's the same as the boats you said. They're taller than our houses." Another man also said, "Yes, yes." The others nodded vigorously. "Bigger than our houses?" The man sitting cross-legged on the stone on the shore turned to look at the direction that the others pointed. He was so shocked that he almost sprained his waist. On the river in the distance, boats were coming over. Each boat was taller than the houses they lived in, especially the three largest boats. It reminded the leader of the vague memory that he had once encountered the Longboat tribe's fleet. Longboat tribe? The leader exclaimed. No, that's not right. The Longboat tribe doesn't have that kind of totem. It's more like a thin man next to the leader pulled his long beard that he hadn't shaved for a long time. The pattern on the boats looks familiar. I think I've seen it somewhere before. I think I've seen it before, too. Someone agreed. In the Wanderers area. Wanderers area? Impossible. Look, they're coming. Will they stop here? If they stop, we'll definitely get something, right? Looking at such a situation, they knew that they were not to be trifled with. They didn't have any thoughts of killing and robbing anymore. They just stared at the fleet that was getting closer and closer. On the river, the slaves were already shouting and moving their rafts to the riverbank. If they stayed on the river, they would be blocking the way. They didn't even dare to offend the travelers on rafts, let alone such a fleet. They didn't even need the supervisor to whip them. They were all afraid that they would fall behind and get into trouble. The appearance of a fleet was naturally a big matter. It had to be reported. The supervisor had already shouted and told the higher-ups about what happened on the river. The slave master wasn't here, but he also left the supervisor here to enslave them. Many people who were still in the Wanderers area and didn't go out also approached the riverbank to see the fleet that suddenly appeared. Many of them had lived until now and had never been out of here. They also hadn't seen such a big ship. Naturally, they felt that it was very strange. The fleet gradually approached the riverbank. The waves washed the sand on the riverbank. The slaves were already waiting there. The supervisor who held the whip had already changed his face. He put away all his ruthlessness and had a fawning expression on his face. If they did a good job, they would be rewarded. After the ship reached the riverbank, they didn't put down the ladder. A few warriors jumped down from the ship one after another. The one leading was Yin Shua. Looking at this familiar yet strange place, Yin Shua's heart was filled with emotions. A supervisor hung the whip on his back and trotted forward. He wanted to say something, but after seeing Yin Shua's appearance, all his words were stuck in his throat. He knew Yin Shua. When Yin Shua's family left with the others, he was standing by the riverbank. Yin Shua glanced around. His gaze stopped for a moment on the few wanderers who were as stiff as stone statues not far away. Then he looked in the direction of the Wanderers area. This is the place where you used to live? The warrior who jumped down asked Yin Shua. Yes, this is the place. It has changed a lot. While talking, Yin Shua took them to find his friends who had stayed here before. Xiao Xian did not disembark. He stood on the ship and looked at the stone houses that were nearly 10 meters tall in the distance. When he left, there were no such houses. It was obvious that the slaves built these houses in the past 2 years. They belonged to the slave owners. If it was just for the wanderers to live, it would only need some simple wooden houses. The place for the slaves to live was even worse. It wasn't like the buildings behind the forest that looked like a camp. The slave master seems to have a big plan, Xiao Xian said in his heart. Originally, he only came to pick up a few people. He didn't expect to see the large stone houses that were built like a camp. If he didn't stand on the ship and just stood on the ground, it was very likely that his sight would be blocked by the forest. Not long after, Yinji brought back more than 10 people. Some of them were familiar with him, and some were new members of the small group in these 2 years. They all wanted to leave with the Yinjiao tribe, and Ao agreed. The people who were taken on the ship cried with joy, as if they were reborn. The other wanderers who were standing on the riverbank and watching had endless envy and jealousy in their eyes. Who would have thought that the person who was so miserable in the past would have such an opportunity? Who would have thought that the person who was stubborn and lived a hard life with his wife and children would become a totem warrior? Life was unpredictable. The fleet of the Yinjiao tribe didn't stay here for a long time. They left after picking up the people. The shaman just let the people of the tribe see the miserable situation of the wanderers and slaves here, to give them a warning. The shaman's purpose was achieved. No matter the people who followed Yinji to the wanderers area, or the people who stood on the ship and watched the slaves who were numbly working with whips, They all had a great psychological impact. In the war, if they were defeated, except for death, they would probably be in such a situation. Therefore, no matter who they faced in the future, they couldn't be defeated. They absolutely couldn't be defeated. The fleet of the Yinjiao tribe came and left, and continued to sail along the new route they had planned. The wanderers and slaves on this land had already remembered the name of the Yinjiao tribe and the two-horn totem pattern wrapped in flames on the sails. The steward, who was left behind by the slave master Shu, went back after the fleet left. He took out the animal skin roll left by the slave master from the box, dipped the animal hairbrush in paint, and wrote down what happened today. The master had said that if the Yinjiao tribe really appeared, he should write a letter to inform him. The Yinjiao tribe really existed. Chapter 240. In addition to the people Yin Shuan knew, on the way, the tribe also met some wanderers who were looking for the fire seed. Xiao Xian had never seen them before, but since they could feel the fire seed and follow the fire seed, they must be the descendants of the Yinjiao tribe. Many of them had faint totem runes on their bodies when they came over, just like Yin Sha. Some of these people were weak, skinny, malnourished, injured, and so on. They didn't seem to be in a good condition, but according to them, they were much better than before. 2 years ago, faint totem patterns suddenly appeared on their bodies, and their strength also increased a lot. Today, the totem patterns appeared again, and they felt something strange again, so they hurried to come here. Ao cleared 2 boats, one for the wanderers of the Yinjiao tribe, and the other for the wanderers whose tribe was destroyed. Of course, Ao would also send people to watch each boat. Ao was now vigilant, no matter if they were wanderers from other tribes or from his own tribe. He knew that Yin Ji and the others had met some traitors, and that many people here were not as loyal as the original tribe members, so he needed to wait and see. After waiting and seeing, he was happy to accept those who were trustworthy and welcome them back, but those who were not determined were another matter. In the cabin of the central boat, "How many people are there?" the shaman asked Xiao Xian. 27 wanderers from other tribes and 49 wanderers from our tribe, almost 50. Xiao Xian said. Among the wanderers from other tribes, there were He Air and the others who had stayed in the Longboat tribe. The fleet of the Yinjiao tribe didn't pass by the Longboat tribe. Ao didn't want to directly contact the Longboat tribe, so now the fleet took another route. After all, only a few people can feel the fire seed. The shaman sighed. They can only feel it in a limited range, and they can only feel it in the vicinity of the sailing route. Now the fire seed hasn't really burned in the old haunt. When it really burns, more people will be able to feel it. Xiao Xian said, "Well, Xian, you keep an eye there. I feel something strange there." Compared with other people, including the 2 team leaders, the shaman actually believed in Xiao Xian's ability more. "I feel it too. All right, you rest first. I'll go take a look and find out who's trying to take advantage of the situation." Xiao Xian put down the map in his hand and asked Guizhe to give him 2 packets of medicine before he left the cabin. Xiao Xian took the medicine to the wanderers of the tribe and asked Ma to boil a pot of medicine for them. Then he took another bag of medicine to the boat where the wanderers were. Although the wanderers whose tribes had been destroyed decided to follow them, they were still afraid of the strange totem warriors. When they saw that Xiao Xian did not have a knife in his hand, they relaxed a little. The warriors who had come in before were all holding stone tools. Coupled with their imposing manner, it would be strange if the wanderers were not afraid. It was rare to see someone who looked easy to talk to. Several of them knew Xiao Xian. When they saw Xiao Xian, they were not so afraid. They even smiled and greeted him, but they were careful in their words for fear of offending Xiao Xian by saying something wrong. "Have Yin Ji and Yin Shua been here?" Xiao Xian looked at the people in the cabin and asked. "Yes, they have just left. He Air, who had been brought here by Yin Ji and Jiao Wu from the Longboat tribe 2 days ago, answered hurriedly. Xiao Xian handed him the medicine. "Boil this medicine for everyone. It will help your wounds heal faster." There was a simple stove outside. He Air thanked Xiao Xian and went out to boil the medicine. Xiao Xian gave him the medicine and lifted his foot to leave. However, at the moment when he turned around, two black shadows shot out from Xiaoxian's hands. They brushed past the hair of several wanderers in front of him and shot towards two people leaning in the corner. The two people, a man and a woman, were young. They were with the wanderers of the Yinjiao tribe that they had met on the way. It was said that they knew each other. There were 7 wanderers from other tribes who had been brought here, including these two people. Men and women were not separated here, and no one dared to mess around here. There were Yinjiao people outside, so they all wanted to behave well. Naturally, they all stayed obediently. After entering the cabin, the man and the woman began to communicate with others, but they did not speak much these 2 days. Especially when the Yinjiao tribe warriors came in, they basically did not speak. Several times, the Yinjiao tribe warriors came in and glanced at the young woman many times. Every time when everyone thought that the Yinjiao tribe warriors had taken a fancy to the woman, the Yinjiao warriors would leave. Everyone saw the young woman shrinking in the corner. They all wondered if it was because the warriors always looked at her that she was so scared that she hid in the corner. For this reason, there was even a young wanderer in front of her. At this time, no one in the cabin expected Xiaoxian to suddenly attack. When the two wanderers saw Xiaoxian's action, they were so surprised that their eyes widened instantly. They did not have time to dodge and felt a sharp pain in their necks. It was like being stabbed by a burning stone awl. The pain came suddenly and fiercely. Moreover, this kind of pain quickly spread through every nerve and spread to every part of his body. It was as if countless stone awls had formed and pierced into every muscle and every part of his internal organs. It was as if they had taken root and could not be pulled out. This kind of pain that came in an instant and spread in a very short time made them want to scream and jump up. As soon as they moved, they were forcibly pressed down by a strong force. The man also wanted to take out a small stone knife hidden in his animal skin coat, but Xiaoxian lifted him up forcibly. The next moment, his face directly hit a thick wooden shield on the ground, which was left by the warriors on the ship. His head was not clear, and after being pressed and hit, he became more dizzy and painful. After a few seconds, he really fainted, and 2 streaks of blood flowed from his nose. The young woman did not persist for long and fainted. No one in the cabin expected Xiaoxian to suddenly attack. For a moment, the cabin was dead silent. Just now, they thought that this person was easy to talk to and was not as fierce as the others. But now he attacked so quickly. The wanderers thought, sure enough, the Yinjiao tribe was like other tribes, killing wanderers casually. They thought that they would be reborn. If they knew someone in the tribe would not be too harsh on them. At least, they would not kill them indiscriminately. But now, there were already 2 wanderers who were suddenly treated like this, and no one knew whether they were dead or alive. For a moment, the mood of the wanderers in the cabin was complicated. Not only the wanderers, but also the several totem warriors of the Yinjiao tribe who were guarding here were very puzzled by Xiaoxian's behavior. However, they would not doubt Xiaoxian's motives. In their view, Xiaoxian had made so many contributions to the tribe. What he was doing now must be right, even if it was not right. As for the wanderers' thoughts, they did not care at all. Compared with Xiaoxian, the wanderers were really nothing in the eyes of the Yinjiao tribe's warriors. Compared with Xiaoxian, who was more important and who was less important, they did not need to use their brains to think about it. Chapter 241. While the wanderers in the cabin and the warriors of the Yinjiao tribe who came in after hearing the noise had their own thoughts, they suddenly heard a cracking sound coming from the bodies of the 2 people who had fallen to the ground. The sound was not loud, but because no one was talking in the cabin, it was strangely quiet. Therefore, the people in the cabin heard the sound coming from the 2 people. Everyone turned in that direction at the same time and saw the 2 people's figures slowly changing. The 2 people who originally looked thin and weak due to their injuries and long and arduous lives were now elongated and bulging. Although they were not very strong, they were much better than their sickly and weak appearance just now. The warriors of the Yinjiao tribe felt danger from the 2 people. The wanderers in the cabin were also stunned. No matter how bad their eyes were, they could see that there was something wrong with the 2 people. This kind of change was not something that the Wanderers could do. Xian, who are these two people? A warrior of the Yinjiao tribe asked. They should be people from other tribes who have sneaked in. Xiao Xian did not say much. He told the people in the cabin to remember to take medicine, and then left the ship with the two people who had fainted. After Xiao Xian left, the Wanderers in the cabin suddenly felt relieved. It turned out that he did not attack them for no reason, but because he saw that something was wrong. Thinking that there were totem warriors from other tribes hiding in their group, the Wanderers became alert. They only stayed with the people they knew and kept a distance from the people they did not know. On the other side, Xiao Xian took the two people to another big ship where Ao and the two team leaders were. Are they the ones? Ao looked at the two people who had fainted and asked. They had just been called over by Xiao Xian, who said that people from other tribes had sneaked in. Hearing this, they did not care about anything else and immediately rushed over. It's them. Maybe they have been watching us since the beginning of the drumming tribe. Xiao Xian said. Who are these two people? Ta asked. I'm guessing that they're from Bandit. Before we left, the drumming tribe lost something. It might have been something important. The shaman of the drumming tribe kept it, but it was stolen. Xiao Xian told Xiao Xian about his guess. That night, Xiao Xian found something strange. Everyone knew about it, but they didn't know that it was the shaman of the drumming tribe who had lost something. To be able to steal from a shaman in a tribe, that thief must be very capable. Ao and the others immediately became serious. It's them. Ao pointed at the two unconscious people. No, the person from that night wasn't caught. He escaped. These two should be robbers too, but they aren't as good as that person, Xiao Xian said. Even if they were not as good as the one who stole from the drumming tribe that night, these two people could not be underestimated. Since they dared to sneak into the Yinjiao tribe, could it be that they also wanted something from the tribe? Ao and the other two instantly thought of the fire crystals they had brought with them. A murderous look flashed across their eyes. We can't let him live. The three of them said at the same time. I know we can't let him live, but I want to know more from them. For example, the thief who could enter and leave the drumming tribe at will that night. Maybe he's also watching us, but he hasn't shown up yet. The two unconscious people were hit by the wooden thorns thrown by Xiao Xian. The thorns were smeared with a kind of plant poison brought back from the other side of the river. It could knock down a totem warrior in a short time, but the effect was as fast as it came. About an hour later, the two people woke up one after another. In the face of Ao and the others questioning, they didn't tell the truth at all. It wasn't until Xiao Xian told them about the thief he met that night that they reacted a little. Who is that person? Xiao Xian asked. I don't know, the woman said. Her breasts rose and fell with a breath. When she was brought here by Xiao Xian, her animal skin coat was also damaged. The temptation inside was partly hidden and partly visible because of the light. She looked at Ao and the others who were a few steps away with a pleading look in her eyes. I only followed you because I was curious. I didn't steal anything from you. Please don't kill me. Because their hands and feet were tied, the poison in their bodies hadn't completely dispersed. Their mobility was limited. They could only move their bodies slightly and couldn't make any big movements. Xiao Xian raised his eyebrows when he saw the woman twisting her body and rubbing her animal skin coat even more. He looked at the three people behind him. This woman had a good plan. Perhaps she had experienced many similar things before, but this time she met people from the Yinjiao tribe. This was a group of stones. In their minds, people who were classified as enemies or suspected to be enemies, regardless of gender, age, or appearance, would not be merciful. The man didn't say anything. He just lowered his head, thinking about something. When the room quieted down, he suddenly laughed wildly. We're so stupid, he said. These words were obviously directed at the woman beside him. We've been used as stones to explore the way. Ha ha. Both of us are stones to explore the way. The man laughed loudly. 2 streams of blood flowed from his nose into his mouth, dyeing his teeth red. His eyes became crazy. If possible, he would probably bite the person closest to him to vent his anger. When they were in the forest, if they felt that there might be danger, they would throw a stone to see if there was anything in front of them that could threaten them. If there was, all the danger would be borne by the stone that was thrown out first. Now, the crazy man understood the situation they were in. Since the people who were ranked higher than them had been in the drumming tribe, they must have also had their eyes on the Yinjiao tribe. However, the other party had never appeared. Since they didn't appear, they must have sensed danger. However, they didn't say anything and just watched the two of them come to explore. As for those who were more ambitious, they were hiding behind the scenes and watching. Not long ago, the wanderers of the Yinjiao tribe who got on the boat said that 3 people disappeared on the way here. The 2 siblings and their father were never found. Did you do it? Xiao Xin asked. The crazy laughter stopped abruptly. You wanted to change into their appearance, but their father recognized you, so you killed another one. However, you also found that if you changed into the appearance of a Yinjiao tribesman, you would be easily recognized. That's why you targeted the wanderers outside the Yinjiao tribe, Xiao Xin said. Looking at the 2 people who were silent for a few seconds and struggling to explain themselves, Xiao Xin whispered something to Ao and left the room. These 2 people might not know who stole the drumming tribe shaman's things that night, but judging from their reactions, they must have killed the wanderers of the Yinjiao tribe. Ao would not let them go. Not long after, the 2 bodies were moved out of the cabin and thrown into the river. In this area, there were many carnivorous fishes with sharp teeth. The fleet continued to move forward. The people in the tribe didn't care about the 2 missing people. Many people didn't even know that 2 people were missing on one of the boats. Even the wanderers didn't mention the 2 people who were missing. It seemed that nothing had happened, but those who were observing could find that the guards on every ship of the Flaming Horns tribe were much stricter, and they were watching people more closely. The fleet had been sailing along the planned waterway to the old haunt. However, they couldn't go directly to the old haunt. Therefore, they had to go by land. The boats couldn't be used anymore, but they couldn't just throw them away either. Sell them? That was not necessary. In the end, they followed Xiao Xian's suggestion and built carriages. They used the good wood they brought back from hunting, so they couldn't waste it. They dismantled the planks that could be used on the boats and rebuilt them into 4-wheeled carriages or multi-wheeled carriages. They didn't need to be too complicated, as long as they were stable. Besides, it would take more time to build something complicated, so the tribe couldn't stay in the same place for too long. After Xiao Xian drew the structure diagram, he asked the people who had participated in the shipbuilding of the tribe to continue to build the carriages. After the experience of shipbuilding, it was easier for these people to work together. They had the skills, so they didn't need to say too much. Before the carriages were built, the team wouldn't continue to move forward. The place that Xiao Xian chose to stay was surrounded by mountains and forests. There were very few tribes. If it were a small group of wanderers or a small group of travelers, they would probably be too scared to sleep in such a wild mountain. However, for the people of the Flaming Horns tribe, this was nothing at all. They scrambled to plunder in the surrounding mountains, scrambling to hunt those strong beasts that seemed to have more meat. Especially those ferocious beasts, which were released to hunt, directly scared away the beasts in the surrounding mountains. For several days, the warriors had to go farther to hunt. The Yinjiao tribe is really amazing. In the place where the wanderers were, he air-sighed with emotion. He saw a bear as tall as 2 people running down the mountain in the distance, as if it was running for its life. It seemed to be extremely terrified, as if it was avoiding its natural predator. It wanted to escape from this place, but not long after, it was easily pounced on by a wolf. Soon, it stopped breathing and was dragged back by the wolf to become food for the tribesmen. The performance of the Yinjiao tribe also gave the wanderers a boost. The more powerful the tribe was, the safer the wanderers who depended on it would be. At least they were less likely to become food because of the tribe's famine. Looking at the warriors' momentum of clearing the mountains and forests, it shouldn't be a famine, right? The wanderers thought. At the beginning of the shipbuilding, because the technicians were not familiar with it, they destroyed a lot of wood. However, as long as they were instructed properly, they could quickly learn. These carriages were certainly not as big as the boats, and the number of carriages was limited. They changed the boats into carriages and removed the planks one by one. At the beginning, when they saw the boats being dismantled, they were more or less reluctant. However, When they saw the carriages with wheels, their reluctance disappeared. 5 days later, 7 carriages were built. They were the kind that could shelter the wind and rain. The carriages were between 10 and 20 meters long. They looked like public buses. There were no horses here, so the ferocious beasts in the tribe were responsible for pulling the carriages. Other than Cha-Cha and Gue, he's Whitebird, the others were all used as coachmen to pull the carriage. Chapter 242. The shaman was in the smallest carriage this time. Only he and the Gue were in it. Of course, the fire seed was also in it. The smallest carriage was also the most important one. The warriors around the carriage were the elite forces of the tribe. As for the one pulling the carriage, it was the alligator snapping turtle. Although it was usually too lazy to move, it was not necessarily slower than people on land. Even if it was not as fast as the others, as long as it could keep up with the speed of the team, it would be enough. The number of carriages was limited, so it was impossible for everyone to get in like the fleet. Only the old, the weak, the sick, and the pregnant got in the carriage. The warriors of the tribe did not mean to get in the carriage. Those who had not awakened their totemic power also tried to walk outside and only got in the carriage when they were tired. Many children, as long as they could walk, would be carried by their fathers. If they could not walk, they would get in the carriage to rest. When they were well rested, they would be carried down to follow them. They felt that this was also a kind of exercise. They could not be too weak. Especially after seeing the living conditions of wanderers and slaves, their desire to become stronger became stronger. In the past, they just followed the ancestral teachings and moved closer to the strong. But now, they were doing this for survival and for the whole tribe. The people of the Yinjiao tribe were like this, so the wanderers could not treat themselves as special cases. As long as they could walk, they would not get in the carriage. If they got in the carriage, they would be despised and even abandoned by the tribe. It was not easy to have such a hope to live a new life. Of course, they could not be cowards at this time. In the plan, the route on land bypassed several big tribes. At this time, the Yinjiao tribe did not want to have conflicts with the big tribes. According to the shaman, they should go back to the old haunt and ignite the fire seed first. Therefore, the tribe went to places with few people. They passed by many tribes and almost fought several times. However, when they saw the ferocious beasts pulling the carriages of the Yinjiao tribe, they hesitated. Finally, they just watched the team pass by their door. The shaman and the chief also restrained the people in the team. All actions should be taken according to the command. Don't act recklessly. The detour was not only to avoid unnecessary conflicts, but also to find food. The best way to find food was to go to places with fewer people and mountains and rivers. As long as the danger was within the acceptable range, they could go there. Go over the mountains? Can't go over the mountains? Who said that? It was not convenient to pull the cart, but they could carry it. A few soldiers could carry a cart full of people. The Yinjiao tribe was completely sweeping through the area. They swept all the way to the old haunt. No one knew how many of the wild beasts in the mountains were eaten. Wherever they passed, people and beasts were frightened. The mentality of the people in the team was also gradually changing. When they were on the other side of the river, other than staying in the tribe, they were always on guard when they went out. They wanted to minimize their presence, but here, it was the opposite. When they encountered trouble, those who didn't have eyes and came looking for trouble, or those who were sent by others to probe, would use the most violent and direct method to tell those who were scheming behind their backs to put away their claws. Otherwise, they would be chopped off without mercy. Who knew how much blood was left behind along the way? However, there were also some travel teams that deliberately followed behind the Yinjiao tribe. Because of this, no wild beasts dared to attack them. As long as those travel teams didn't have any bad intentions, the shaman and the chief wouldn't care too much. They could even collect protection fees. I feel that we're almost at the old haunt. In the cart that was most tightly surrounded, the shaman looked at the dancing fire in front of him and said excitedly, "How many years had it been? What did the old haunt look like?" The shaman looked at the dancing fire and gradually became absent-minded. Outside, Xiao Xian looked around at the empty grassland. The soldiers who went out to hunt had already returned, but they looked quite depressed. There were many plants around, but few wild beasts. The food they found was not enough for them. Even if they could last for today, what about tomorrow? Maybe there would be fewer wild beasts tomorrow. What would they eat then? They thought that wild beasts were easy to get hungry, so they didn't like it. Now even the wild beasts were almost gone. Chief, what should we do? Kiki picked up a wild rabbit in his hand and shook it. He was very depressed. Tuwa dragged a snake as thick as an arm back listlessly. This snake was not enough for him. Grumble, the input couldn't catch up with the output. Many soldiers' stomachs were already growling. Ao didn't know what to do, so he didn't answer immediately. Let's go and trade for some food. We're not far from the Lu tribe. They have many wild beasts. I'll take some people to trade with them for some wild beasts. If we go further, we won't find much food unless we reach the old haunt. It's definitely not enough for the team. Xiao Xian said. Originally, most of the people here were rearing animals and farming. Moreover, there were very few mountains on this route. Even if there were, they were all low mountains. There weren't many large wild beasts. It was very difficult to hunt enough food. Ao had learned about the Lu tribe from Xiao Xian's records, so he naturally knew a little about it. Ao had a good impression of this tribe. They reared wild beasts to make a living. They were good people in the central region. Such a tribe was indeed worth trading with. After thinking about it, Ao nodded and agreed with Xiao Xian's suggestion. The team couldn't continue to wait here. Xiao Xian estimated the team's speed and agreed to meet Ao at a place. Then they took some water moonstones. Xiao Xian called 50 soldiers and left for the Lu tribe. After leaving for 2 years, they met the people of the Lu tribe again. The man named Yin Jiu still remembered Xiao Xian. Hearing that Xiao Xian wanted to trade for some wild beasts, Yin Jiu enthusiastically took Xiao Xian and the others to the tribe's farm to choose. Although they had heard Xiao Xian talk about the wild beasts of the Lu tribe, Kiki and the others were still surprised when they saw it with their own eyes. Seeing the reactions of Kiki and the others, Yin Jiu showed a proud expression and started to boast about all kinds of animals in his tribe. For the soldiers who had been eating wild beasts for several days, when they saw those fat birds like forest raccoons, they almost drooled and stared at them. Those were all meat, all meat. What do you think? What do you want? Yin Jiu asked Xiao Xian. He could see that in this trade, although Xiao Xian was young, he was the one who made the decisions. Xian, that one. We must take the fattest one. Kiki hurriedly pointed out to Xiao Xian. Which one do you like? I'll ask someone to bring it out for you. Yin Jiu said with a smile. Xiao Xian pointed out some beasts, and the others couldn't help but pick some beasts by themselves. While Kiki and the others were choosing, Xiao Xian calculated the number of water moonstones they could exchange for. Fortunately, the value of water moonstones in the central region increased, so they could exchange for more beasts. When they finished, Yin Jiu calculated the number of wild beasts twice in his mind and said, 250, right? Xiao Xian said, yes. Xiao Xian took out the corresponding water moonstones and handed them to Yin Jiu. He looked at the 5 wild beasts that had been tied together and saw someone coming with a wooden cart. He said, we don't need the cart. After confirming that Xiao Xian really didn't need the wooden cart, Yin Jiu took out more than 10 eggs and said, since you don't need us to transport them, I'll give you some more eggs. The eggs were covered with rattan nets, and Xiao Xian asked Cha-Cha to carry them. As for the rest of the wild beasts, each of the soldiers had 5. Yin Jiu's face twitched when he saw that Xiao Xian and the others could still run and jump while carrying 5 birds each. After sending Xiao Xian and the others out of the tribe, Yin Jiu said with a smile, if you need any wild beasts in the future, just ask someone to tell me, and I'll send them to you. Okay, we'll be back to our homeland soon. When we settle down, we'll walk around more often. Xiao Xian turned around and left the Lu tribe with Kiki and the others, carrying the wild beasts they got from the trade. Where will you settle down? Yin Jiu asked. The ferocious beasts' mountain forest. Yin Jiu stood there, rubbing his frozen face. Yin Jiu couldn't help but pick his ears and asked the person next to him, who was also stunned, where did he say they would settle down in the future? The person next to Yin Jiu swallowed his saliva and stammered, it seems to be The Ferocious Beast Mountain Forest near the Wanshur tribe. The Ferocious Beast Mountain Forest was a dangerous place, not to mention the Wanshur tribe. How could they settle down there? And they said they would walk around more often? Who dared to do that? Chapter 243. With the food brought back by Xiao Xian from the Lu tribe, the tribe was in a much better condition. Apart from sleeping and resting, the tribe was always on the road. The tribes who saw this team, as well as the travelers, were very curious about the Yinjiao tribe. It was not that there had never been such a large-scale migration, but many people had never seen such a powerful tribe. The Yinjiao tribe's name gradually spread through the traveling team. In the middle of the team, the shaman was in the carriage. The shaman sat by the small fire pit, counting the days in his mind. The fire in the fire pit was much bigger than before, and it was still jumping happily. However, if you looked carefully, you would find that there seemed to be a faint barrier around the fire pit. The shaman had specially made this barrier. According to the animal skin scroll left by the ancestors, if the fire seed was not dealt with by other tribes, there would be a competition between the fire seeds, and the loser would be suppressed temporarily. This was a situation that no tribe wanted to see because it would affect the tribe's morale. The Yinjiao tribe did not want to attract hatred as soon as they came out. This was also why, except for the travelers of the Yinjiao tribe, few people could feel the fire seed here. And those who guessed that there was a fire seed here and had evil intentions were all defeated by the Yinjiao warriors in the most direct and violent way. On the way from the drumming tribe, the team took in more than 200 travelers from the tribe, both on the water and on the land. There were also some travelers from other tribes. Xiao Xian counted the number of travelers, and now there were almost 200 people. Seeing that the destination was getting closer and closer, the team began to become restless. The restless ones were not the original group of people of the Flaming Horns tribe, but the wanderers of the tribe and other tribes who joined later. These days, these travelers all knew the destination of the Yinjiao tribe. As soon as they heard that it was the Ferocious Beast Mountain Forest, some people began to be afraid. Especially in the past few days, the Yinjiao warriors who were guarding the wanderers would always talk about the ferocious beasts. They talked about who had been eaten by the beasts, who had almost been bitten to death by the beasts, and so on. The injured warriors would also talk about the dangerous situation they had been in when they encountered the beasts. The warriors of the Yinjiao tribe could talk about ferocious beasts for hundreds of days without repeating themselves. After all, they had been in contact with ferocious beasts since they were very young. Originally, the topic of ferocious beasts made these wanderers worried. Listening to it was like listening to a scary ghost story. Every day, different people talked about the same topic. It was impossible to pretend that they didn't hear it. Therefore, they had more and more thoughts in their minds. That night, the team stayed at the foot of a mountain for the night. Pierre was sleeping in a daze when he heard the person next to him wake him up in a low voice. "What? Are you under attack?" Pierre woke up with a start. There was nothing he could do about it. This was the wilderness, and he had heard too many stories about ferocious beasts recently. The first thing that came to his mind when he was woken up was a ferocious beast. Pierre was about to say something, but his mouth was covered by someone. The person who woke him up was someone who had a good relationship with him in a Longbow tribe. They were very familiar with Yin Ji and the others. "Look over there." The person who woke Pierre up said in a low voice. The fire around them had almost burned out. The flame was much smaller. Only those who were close to the fire could see it clearly. A little farther away, there was only a vague shadow. Pierre and the others were a little far from the fire, but they could see the figures over there. Several figures got up from the ground, carrying animal skin bags and a few belongings. They tiptoed out of the crowd. There were also hunting warriors around. When they noticed these people, they asked, "What are you doing?" Those people were scared when they were called, but they still answered in a trembling voice, "I drank too much water. I want to relieve myself." The warrior who was on night watch yawned and said carelessly, "Come back quickly. Don't go far." "Hey, I'll come back when I'm done. I won't go far." Those wanderers hurriedly promised. After those people left, Pierre was about to talk to his companions who had woken up, but he saw several people get up and leave with the excuse that they had diarrhea. The warrior who was on night watch just muttered, "So troublesome." Then he said no more. "What should we do? Pierre, shall we also leave?" The person next to him asked. Those who left decided to leave because they had heard a lot about the ferocious beasts and knew that the destination of the Yinjiao tribe was the ferocious beast mountain forest. Compared with the ferocious beast mountain forest, they were more willing to go to other tribes. Some wanderers had always wanted to change places because of great oppression in their original living places. This time, they came to the Yinjiao tribe. They thought that they would have a better life, but they did not expect that they would face a more severe situation. Fortunately, they had seen a lot of good places along the way in the Yinjiao tribe. The living conditions of several tribes were in line with their standards and within their plans. The wanderers did not understand the Yinjiao tribe. They thought that going to the ferocious beast mountain forest was a suicidal act. A tribe with such great potential like yours would definitely be able to gain a firm foothold in a safe place. Compared to some of the smaller tribes in the central region, your tribe would not be worse. Although you have fewer people, in 10 or 20 years, your population would probably double. Why would you want to seek your own death? Even if there were a few ferocious beasts in the team, so what? It was the ferocious beast mountain forest. There were more than millions of ferocious beasts there. Even the big tribes in the central region were not willing to go there. They just wanted to live a better life, not die with the Yinjiao tribe. 2 days ago, some people left, but not many. Tonight, maybe everyone realized that they would soon arrive at the ferocious beast mountain forest. This might be their last chance to leave. If the Yinjiao people found that too many people left tomorrow, would they be angry? Pierre, what do you think? Should we leave too? Tonight may be our last chance. If we miss this chance, we won't be able to escape when we enter the ferocious beast mountain forest. Someone asked Pierre, didn't the Yinjiao tribe say that they could not hunt many beasts along the way? Even many large beasts in the forest were scared away by the Yinjiao tribe's beasts. The rest of the beasts were eaten by the Yinjiao warriors. Those beasts had been cleaned up. At least, they would not go back in a short time. Therefore, as long as they followed the path of the Yinjiao tribe, they would be less likely to encounter those dangerous beasts. If they went back now, they would be safe. In the past 2 days, some of them had specially collected the feces of the ferocious beasts so that they could use the feces of the ferocious beasts to intimidate the ferocious beasts in the forest. Only then would they be safer. Seeing Pierre did not answer, the man poked Pierre. Are you going or not? Pierre gritted his teeth and lay down again. He whispered, no, I don't want to go back, and I believe in Yinji and the others. The surrounding people were silent, and then they lay down one by one. Forget it, let's bet. After making the decision, they lay down again, but they could not fall asleep. Listening to the sounds of those beasts leaving, they opened their eyes wide in a daze. In the dark night, where the firelight could not reach, and where the moonlight was blocked, the night watchmen leaned against the trees. They looked at those who were running away from the team with a sneer, but did not stop them. The next day, the team continued their journey. The wanderers had decreased by nearly 1/3. It was obvious at a glance. However, the Yinjiao tribe did not seem to know and did not mention it. Strangely, no one told the wanderers the story of the ferocious beasts. Some clever wanderers realized that this was a test by the Yinjiao tribe. When Yinji and the others saw Pierre and the others, their tense faces relaxed. Fortunately, they were still there. It was the shaman's idea to test the wanderers. He had arranged it in advance, and no one dared to say anything. Even Yinji and the others could only worry in their hearts when they saw the restless wanderers. Xiaoxian took a piece of animal skin full of words and got on the shaman's carriage. More than 70 wanderers left. 6 of them are Yinjiao wanderers. Xiaoxian handed the animal skin roll to the shaman and said, the wanderers of other tribes were not so bad, but the warriors of the Yinjiao tribe treated them very well. Although they did not completely trust them, they helped them a lot. 2 days ago, when they were short of food, some warriors even saved their own food for them. However, some of these wanderers still left. Fortunately, there were not many of them. After the shaman took the animal skin scroll, he didn't read it. Instead, he closed his eyes. There was no disappointment or sadness on his face. However, those who were familiar with the shaman knew that he was the most terrifying when he was expressionless. Even if the two team leaders were here, they would tremble in fear. Xiao Xian did not interrupt the shaman's silence and quietly waited for him to make a decision. After a long while, the shaman opened his eyes and said, "If you leave, don't come back." Although his words were gentle, there was an irrefutable, murderous aura in them. Xiao Xian had already expected the shaman's answer, so he nodded. "I know." He wrote down the names of those who left and those who stayed. There was only one chance, and the trust of the Yinjiao shaman would only come once. The people who followed him all thought that in the Yinjiao tribe, the chief was in charge. This was the management style of many tribes, and they thought that the shaman was just an assistant in management. However, those who had lived in the Yinjiao tribe since childhood knew that the shaman had an absolute position in the tribe. Since the shaman had made such a decision, no matter Chief Ao or others, they would not have any objection. After getting out of the carriage, Xiao Xian looked at the sky. The weather is not very good. After leaving the shaman, Xiao Xian went to another carriage, in which sat the women who could not move or had not awakened their totemic power. Even if they could not move, they were not idle in the carriage. They had brought some tools and some animal skins that the warriors had obtained after hunting. They were here to sew and mend and to make some leather boots. Putting down the animal skins and a few rolls of twine, Xiao Xian said to them, "Please make some long leather boots. Children also need them." Although they did not understand why, they did not ask. They just followed Xiao Xian's instructions. Chapter 244. After passing through a plain, the team finally saw the endless green area in the distance. At the border of the sky and the earth, there was a long stretch of green. Farther away, there were some tall mountains. Before they walked in, the tribal warriors' eyes lit up. The familiar feeling made their bodies instantly enter a state of excitement, as if they were back to the dangerous mountain forest on the other side of the river. It was the kind of feeling that made one's hair stand on end. It was not fear, but excitement that made one want to tremble. Of course, they were so excited because of the fire seed. As they got closer and closer to the old place, the totem power in the warriors' bodies was also surging, as if it was going to rush out. Is that the ferocious beast mountain forest? The people in the team looked at the green area in the distance with mixed feelings. The Yinjiao people were excited, but the wanderers were worried and confused. Thud, 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 it began to rain, and the rain quickly turned from light to heavy. Bean-sized raindrops fell from the sky. The dry ground was covered with dust because of the falling raindrops, and the smell of soil was everywhere. The sky quickly became gloomy, and the dark clouds were like a giant hand that was about to hit directly. In the eyes of the wanderers, the green area in the distance was like a big mouth full of sharp teeth, waiting for the prey to come to the door. Looking up, they saw the thick clouds as if they were going to suffocate them. In front of them was the famous ferocious beast mountain forest. The washing of the rain extinguished the fire in the hearts of some wanderers, but they still stood there just because of the anger in their hearts. They did not want to retreat or go back. The team had become solemn at some point. The discussion and laughter had already stopped. The mood of the wanderers was also affected by the solemn atmosphere, and the anxiety in their hearts was miraculously calmed down. At this time, as long as they could walk, they got off the car, including those who were sick, disabled, and old. They were helped down by others. The shaman waved his hand, refused Gui Zhe's help, and jumped out of the car. He was wearing the new leather boots that were sewn during the rainy season this year. The gray fur turned into mud the moment it landed. The shaman looked at the mountain forest with deep eyes. After nearly 1,000 years, how many generations had passed? Finally, they came back here. But the people who came back were not the same as before. "Let's go," Wu said. The ferocious beast mountain forest was very large. The route taken by the Yinjiao team was not in the direction of the Wanshi tribe. There was still some distance between here and the Wanshi tribe, so they didn't see anyone from the Wanshi tribe. There was no need for Xiao Xian to lead the way. Every Yinjiao tribesman could rely on their intuition to find a right direction. Stepping into the forest, the sound of the rain hitting the leaves covered the sounds of the surrounding creatures. The various smells in the air were washed away by the rain again and again. The heavy rain showed no signs of stopping. In the rain, visibility was reduced. Many people couldn't see the situation in the forest in the distance, but it didn't matter. They just had to follow the people in front of them. Inside the carriage where the fire seed was placed, the faint barrier around the fire pit had been removed by the shaman. The deterrence of the fire seed immediately spread throughout the forest. Tap, 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 tap. On the soft ground piled up with countless insects' bodies, leaves, and dust, the warriors carried their animal skin bags and carried their weapons, walking in the muddy forest. Every step they took, they left a deep footprint on the ground. The rain from the sky rushed through the dense leaves and dripped to the ground. Soon the footprints were filled with water. Unless they couldn't keep up with the pace and couldn't feel well, the tribesmen would continue to walk in the team. Some children were led by their parents, and with every step they took, all sorts of rotting substances and mud on the ground would rub their ankles. Fortunately, the boots were long, and even some of the worms in the mud would only bite on the skin. They used their knives to cut off the thin insects with suckers on their feet and continued to walk forward. In the forest, there were many wild animals and ferocious beasts. Even with the deterrence of the fire seed, they couldn't completely avoid them. Those bold and fearless beasts in the forest could suddenly come out from the dense forest at any time. Behind the luxuriant trees, in the caves on the mountainside, lurking in the swamps, and so on, there were cold and bloodthirsty eyes staring at the team that suddenly entered the forest. In the past, if it were other people who entered the forest, they definitely wouldn't miss this delicious meal. However, this team was too special. There was the fire seed that they were afraid of, ferocious beasts like them, and a group of totem warriors with great strength. The smart, ferocious beasts hid and continued to watch. Those that rushed out were looking for death. The swinging of the beast's tail brought up rainwater that swept around like bullets, but was blocked by the warriors in the tribe who guarded around the team. The people in the advance group went to deal with the ferocious beasts that rushed out. In the forest, except for the roars of the ferocious beasts, the other warriors didn't speak. The silent killing was unprecedentedly violent and ferocious. The splashing blood of the beasts mixed with the rainwater and dripped on the ground, dyeing the path that everyone walked on red and filling up every dent in the footprints. No one in the team made a sound, nor did they stop. When the ferocious beasts rushed out, naturally there would be people to resist them. What they had to do was to continue to walk in that direction. If the wanderers who followed them didn't want to be left behind, they would probably fall to the ground and their legs would be soft. Maybe because of the heavy and solemn atmosphere in the team. When they saw the ferocious beasts rushing out of the forest, they wanted to scream, but they couldn't make a sound, as if they were strangled by the neck. The silent group unswervingly walked in that direction, as if they were on a pilgrimage. Xiao Xian put away his knife and didn't care about the ferocious beast that had been cut down on the ground. The other warriors also didn't care about it. They were like sacrifices, the sacrifices that the Yinjiao tribe returned to the old land. The heavy rain lasted for a long time. Xiao Xian had already cut down more than 10 ferocious beasts with the other warriors. Fortunately, they were not in the depths of the ferocious beast forest. There were few ferocious beasts here, and they were not particularly powerful. Xiao Xian threw his animal skin coat on the car, bare-chested, and let the rain wash over his body. There were many people who did the same as Xiao Xian. Everyone had the same totem pattern on their bodies. It was unknown when the totem pattern appeared on every awakened warrior's body, and on the wanderers of the tribe, there were also faint patterns. At the same time, in the old land of the Yinjiao tribe, a team of the Wanshi tribe was resting there. Every once in a while, a team from their tribe would come here. This was the shaman's idea. The chief didn't agree before, but after being persuaded by the shaman several times, he finally agreed. But the chief no longer led the team himself. Now, the people of the Wanshur tribe had no fear of this ruined land. The more they came here, the braver they became. They didn't find a place to hide from the rain, so they just stayed here and waited for the rain to stop before going back. A group of people used the stones of the ruins as stools, and some people directly sat on the collapsed stone pillar that had been cut into several pieces. They talked and laughed, and when they were bored, they poked the carved patterns on the stone pillar with their stone knives. Ah, the rain seems to be lighter. Someone said, "Is it going to stop?" The thick clouds in the sky were quickly dispersing. Yang Guang's light shone through the clouds, dazzling their eyes. The rain hadn't completely stopped, but it seemed that it would stop soon. Just as they were laughing, everyone suddenly heard a crackling sound. It sounded like the sound of burning firewood in a bonfire. Someone lit the bonfire at this time. A man of the Wanshur tribe pointed to a direction with a frightened face. "Fire! There's fire!" The others looked in the direction he pointed. They saw a spark-like light spot in the middle of the pit that had been dug. Then, with the light spot as the center, 6 fire lines extended outwards. A huge sense of panic struck their hearts. Looking at the fire lines on the ground that were about to spread to his feet, a warrior of the Wanshur tribe turned around and ran, shouting, "Go back! Go back to the tribe quickly!" Before the rain stopped completely, they ran away in a panic. They suddenly remembered those who were almost killed in the beginning. Leave here!" In panic, they even felt that the raindrops were like poisonous insects biting them. Chapter 245. Not long after the Wanshur people left, the Yinjiao people came to this place. However, the boundary stones engraved with patterns that had once been placed there were either no longer in their original places, or they had been smashed and hacked. The damage was quite serious, and there were even traces of burning. It was most likely done by the Wanshur people. Looking up, they didn't see the tall stone pillar above the forest. Xiao Xian suddenly had an ominous feeling. He was afraid that the fire pit was also in trouble. Not only Xiao Xian, but the shaman also had a premonition. His hand, holding the walking stick, was shaking. The burning line of fire had already reached the feet of the Yinjiao people. They didn't feel scared or horrified. They only felt a strong sense of familiarity, as if they had finally found a place to belong. The totems in their minds were all active and very energetic. Just stepping on this land made them tremble, as if they were filled with infinite power. The old place. This was the old place. Everyone's eyes were full of expectation. Almost there, almost there. A few more steps, just a few more steps. However, when they walked through the forest and came to the ruins, they were all stunned by the scene in front of them. Apart from the natural destruction, the collapsed house had been destroyed twice, thrice, or even more times by man. It was completely deformed. A huge hole had been dug out in the middle of the house. The fallen stone pillar was telling the people who came here what it had experienced. The entire ruins were filled with desolation. No matter how bright Yangguang was, it couldn't dispel the sadness. This is the old place? Ao's voice was unsteady. How could it be like this? The Yinjiao people were a little confused when they saw this scene. The shaman hurried a few steps forward, as if he wanted to get closer and see the situation more clearly. His footsteps were somewhat staggered, and his hand that was holding the walking stick tightly clenched. The bulging meridians on the back of his hand throbbed, and because of the various emotions that arose from seeing this scene, his body could not help but tremble. How many years had it been? The ancestors of Yinjiao had waited for so many years to come back. They didn't expect to see such a scene. In addition to anger, there was also deep sorrow. Staring at the shattered stones, the shaman felt like his eyes were being pricked by needles. When Xiao Xian returned from this place, he had drawn the situation of the old haunt on a wu roll and showed it to the shaman. Therefore, in the whole tribe, other than Xiao Xian, the shaman was the most familiar with the old place. The shaman knew exactly where the house was, where the stone pillars were, and where the fire pit was. 2 years ago, although this place was still in ruins, with the desolation of a hero past his prime, it was far from being as dilapidated as it was now. Even the fire pit had been dug out. How preposterous! What a bastard! He raised his hand that was as old as tree bark and gently pressed it against his chest. Pain! It was a pain that he had never experienced before. From the day he was born to the day he took over the position of a shaman. Until now, the old man had never felt this way. There wasn't a single drop of blood, but the pain reached all the way to the bone. The old man was too emotional. Xiao Xian was worried that the shaman would suffer too much, so he hurried over to support him. Seeing the shaman's eyes fixed on the collapsed stone pillar that had been chopped into pieces, Xiao Xian said, "Now that we're back, let's build a taller one. I still remember the patterns carved on the stone pillars. When the time comes, we'll copy the patterns of our ancestors." Of course, these words were only a little comforting. The important thing was that this place had been destroyed again and again. Even if 90% of these things were deducted, it was enough to start a tribal war. This was a provocation, a trampling on the tribe's totem. How could the people of the Yinjiao tribe tolerate this? Ao clenched his fists in anger, and unrestrained anger radiated from his tribal chief. Who did this? Come out. Several roars, like cannonballs exploded in this forest, frightening many birds and animals. After calming down, Ao's mind became more flexible, and soon he thought of the person who might have caused all this. Xiao Xian had told them about the situation and what had happened here. The Wanshi tribe. Ao gritted his teeth as he stroked the engraved stones. As a person who had been exposed to stone tools since childhood, he already knew the marks on the stone tools. Only a small part of the marks on the stone were made a long time ago, and the rest, half of them were made between 1 to 2 years ago. The other half was very new, very new. The time when the carver carved the stone must have been before their arrival. There were many traces of human activities around, which showed that the people who destroyed their old haunt had just left. Stroking the stone, the sadness in Ao's eyes gradually disappeared, replaced by a rapidly accumulated fierce light, and his eyes became red with anger. They haven't gone far. I'll go after them. Ta couldn't help but say, I'll go too. Snow can help us find those people. Gigu said. Snow was Gigu's white falcon, which played a great role in scouting and finding prey. Take the others with you. They have a keen sense of smell. Xiao Xian said. Now that the rain had stopped, the smell wouldn't be completely washed away by the rain. Ao stood up, looked at the angry Yinjiao people behind him, and then turned his eyes to the shaman. The shaman didn't say anything. He just moved his hand away from his chest and then waved it out heavily. Needless to say, everyone already knew the shaman's attitude. He let Ao and Xiao Xian do whatever they wanted. What about here? Ao asked. Don't worry. This is the old haunt of Yinjiao. The shaman's words were like a heavy stone falling on everyone's heart. Because it was the old haunt, because the fire seed and the fire vein were still there, only the Yinjiao people would be protected. Understood. Ao pointed at the ferocious beasts, indicating that they should go. He also pointed at 30 people. Xiao Xian and Caesar took the lead. Except for the turtle pulling the fire seed's carriage, the others all left. Whoosh! The people pointed at by Ao took off their animal skin bags, picked up their weapons, and quickly swept through the grass, chasing the ferocious beasts. In the forest, the people running met some ferocious beasts, and the originally concentrated group was scattered. A warrior of Wanshi was separated from his companions. Because he was too tired, he fell to the ground, his heart beating wildly, and his body trembling. He opened his mouth wide to breathe, and looked back from time to time, his eyes full of fear. Quack, quack! The sound came, and the warrior sitting on the ground bounced up from the ground, as if he had been stabbed by a nail, and started to run. Behind him, 5 carnivorous birds shouted and chased. They were very fast, and they were very familiar with the forest, running as fast as the people in front of them. Hearing the approaching footsteps and cries, the running warrior was desperate. He was the only one here. If he fought against the 5 birds alone, he would be seriously injured even if he didn't die. He closed his eyes hard, and when he opened them again, he clenched the knife in his hand, ready to turn around and fight. When the Wanshi warrior turned around and waved his saber, intending to fight desperately, he found that the 5 carnivorous birds who had been chasing him all stopped abruptly, and the muddy water splashed on the Wan Shi warrior's body. Before the soldiers of Wan Shi attacked, the 5 birds ran away as if they were running for their lives. They didn't even make a sound. Wan Shi's soldiers stood there, holding their swords. They stared at the 5 fleeing figures, panting heavily. Just when he thought he had temporarily saved his life, he heard the tapping sound again. It sounded similar to the footsteps of those carnivorous birds, but this time it was faster. Why did those usually arrogant carnivorous birds leave as if they were fleeing? Was it because of him? An even greater sense of panic struck. He changed the direction of his escape and ran away from the sound of footsteps. But this time, the pursuers were much more powerful than the ones before. Tap, tap, tap. Every sound of footsteps behind him was like thunder in his heart. He didn't even look back to see who was chasing him. He just ran away. In less than 2 minutes, a bird's head hit the running man like a hoe. The man was knocked down to the ground. There was a bloody hole in the back of his neck, and blood was gushing out. Mai, who followed closely behind the forest raccoons, also arrived. No matter whether the man was dead or not, he killed him with his knife. Go on. Mai patted the head of the forest raccoons and said. It had planned to chase the birds to have a good meal, but after hearing Mai's words, it had to give up the delicious food for the time being. It was not in a hurry. There would be plenty of time in the future. Similar scenes were happening everywhere in the forest. This time, except for Xiao Xian, who was an intermediate totem warrior, the other 30 people were all senior totem warriors. In the sky, Cha-Cha and the white falcon were flying. In the forest, several ferocious beasts were leading people to chase the people of the Wan Shi tribe. As long as they were still in the forest, Ao would not let any of them go. At the same time, in the Wan Shi tribe, the Wan Shi shaman rushed into the room of the Wan Shi chief, Bian, who was having a good time. Chief, the fire seed has changed. Seeing the shaman more panicked than last time, Bian was even more dissatisfied. In the past 2 years, the shaman had become nervous. He always felt there was a threat in the forest, but every time he sent people there, they found nothing unusual. Bian had always thought it was caused by the old guys in the central region who didn't like him, and he was also angry. Now looking at the shaman, Bian was surprised and doubtful. He planned to take a group of people to have a look. It would be better if they could find some evidence and throw it on the old guys. Didn't they say they wouldn't initiate a war? What about now? It would be better if they could blackmail them. Bian was not afraid of offending people. Anyway, this was his territory. He kicked the door open and called people. He planned to take a walk in the forest. Chapter 246. After the rain, the air in the forest became fresh. However, the people running in the forest were not in the mood to pay attention to the air. They only felt that the forest full of sunlight was full of murderous intent, which was driving them crazy. Puff! A sharp light flashed. The spear penetrated the body of a Wan Shi warrior who was running. The man beside him did not look at his fallen companion. Instead of slowing down, he sped up. In the distance, there came some strange cries of beasts or ferocious beasts, which made people's hair stand on end. There seemed to be a cold current in the forest, which made the birds and beasts that used to live here stay away. Even the ferocious beasts began to look for other places. Yangguang was fine, and the water on the ground reflected the dazzling Yangguang. However, the running man only felt that the temperature around him was dropping rapidly. His eyes, which had been filled with anger because of being chased, were now filled with endless panic. Feeling the approaching killing intent, the running man's pupils suddenly shrank. He felt that a chill was rushing up his spine, and the back of his neck was cold. What should he do? The running Wan Shi warrior anxiously tried to think of a way to survive. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. Yes, there was a giant bear. He remembered that there was a giant bear around. He could lead the pursuers behind him to the giant bear. Perhaps the giant bear would shift its target to them, and he could take advantage of the chaos to escape. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that it was feasible. The face of the Wansure warrior became gloomy because of extreme fear, and his face was so distorted that it could not be seen clearly. Here was almost there. Look, the giant bear was sleeping. He could see a tuft of dark brown hair behind the bush. It was the small one. The big one must be nearby. Great. The sleeping giant bear moved its semicircular ears and sniffed. It smelled the food and opened its eyes. Its sleepiness quickly faded away, and it looked around to find the specific location of the food. The running Wansure warrior almost laughed out loud when he saw the moving figure behind the bush. However, before he could laugh, the invisible pressure became heavy as the chasers approached quickly. It made it difficult for him to breathe, and his steps were unstable. Senior Totem Warrior. He himself was a mid-level totem warrior, but the person who brought him such pressure was no worse than the leader of Swanee, right? He didn't have the time to think about who this domineering and ferocious person was, nor did he have the time to be surprised. The other party's movements were too fast. By the time he wanted to see clearly who it was, his vision had already become blurry due to the huge pressure. The roar of the air riot sounded in his ears. It was like a mountain torrent covering the sky and earth with a destructive aura. It enveloped him and then smashed down. Bang! The ground instantly caved in, forming a mud pit. The edge of the pit was splattered with blood from the inside out. It had just rained, and because of the violent smash just now, the muddy water spread out and flowed back into the pit. Mixed with the fresh blood, it gathered in the pit and drowned the person who had been smashed to the point of being unrecognizable. Xiao Xian rode on the wolf and looked at Ao, who was standing beside the pit with his hands covered in blood and was still furious. Ao's body was covered with muddy water and blood. Coupled with the strong and violent evil spirit, he looked like a god of death who had just been released. Looking away from there, Xiao Xian looked at the bushes not far away. The bear paw that had just stretched out was drawn back. Crack! The sound of the bear paw breaking the branches was quite clear in this stagnant area. Xiao Xian, Ao, who was covered with evil spirit, and Caesar, who was grinding his teeth, all looked over there. The giant bear cub, hiding behind the bushes, had a flash of fear in its eyes. Retreat, retreat, turn around, and run away. In fact, Xiao Xian and Ao had already noticed the guy behind the bushes, but at this time, they were not in the mood to hunt ferocious beasts. Their goal was the people of the Wansure tribe in the forest, so naturally, they would not pay more attention to other ferocious beasts. As long as those ferocious beasts did not hinder them from finding their enemies, they would not pay attention to them. The giant bear cub ran towards the mother bear. Seeing its savior, it was about to roar, just like when it was in trouble and asked for help. However, as soon as it opened its mouth, a bear paw slapped it. The giant bear cub was stunned and forgot to roar, staring at its mother blankly. The mother bear stood up and carefully looked around. Then it landed on all fours, growled, and bared its teeth, and left with the cub. This place was too dangerous. They could not stay here any longer. It was better to go to other places. In the group of people of the Wansure tribe, the one who ran the fastest and had the best luck finally reached the edge of the ferocious beast mountain forest. Ha ha! I still managed to escape. I still managed to escape. He shouted in his heart. Rushing out of the forest, he looked forward and saw Bien and his men coming this way. Did they know something happened in the forest, so they came to save us? That was better. The one who ran out of the forest was ecstatic. He decided that he would never go into the forest again. If someone died, let others die. He would not go in anyway. He would find an excuse to pretend to be dead. However, while he was rejoicing that he had escaped this calamity, he did not notice the fear in the eyes of the people Fu and brought with him when they looked behind him, like the wind blowing. A gray figure jumped out of the forest, landed on the ground, and jumped up again like a tight spring. In an instant, it caught up with the one who ran away. It seemed that it had already predicted where the prey would run to the next moment. When Caesar jumped up and landed, the wolf paw just pressed on the man who ran away. Crack! The wolf paw almost penetrated the man's body and stepped on the ground. Blood spread out. The wind from the forest carried the smell of mud after the rain, and also the smell of blood that made people's hair stand on end. The people with Bien were all speechless, as if they were stabbed in the throat with a knife. They just stared at the man and the wolf who rushed out. Who was this man? Bien looked at the totem pattern on Xiao Xian's body and searched for the totem patterns of each tribe in his memory. He even compared the totem patterns of several well-known tribes in the central region, but none of them matched. Frowning, Bien was a little flustered. This was different from what he had expected. Even a moron would know that something was wrong. As for the wolf that just jumped out of the forest, a ferocious beast? Or a tamed ferocious beast? No wonder this guy could be so arrogant. He dared to chase people here and trample them to death in front of him. Bien's eyes were gloomy. This warrior also looked very young. A senior totem warrior? No, he should not be. At best, he was just a good intermediate totem warrior. Bien could still feel this. However, he did not know why he felt a strong threat from this intermediate totem warrior. Anyway, he was just an intermediate totem warrior, no matter which tribe he was from. Even if he had a ferocious beast with him, could they not even deal with a ferocious beast and an intermediate totem warrior? If this spread out, they would be laughed at. Bien was about to take action, but suddenly he felt a breath that made him extremely afraid. He stopped his action abruptly. The breath of a strong man. A figure rushed out of the forest. He rushed out at a fast speed, but he could stop and stand still in an instant. His feet stepped on the ground, making a bang sound. The wet soil on the ground splashed around like waves. The ground trembled. Even the people of the Wan Shi tribe, who were hundreds of meters away, could feel it clearly. Bien's eyelids suddenly twitched. A senior totem warrior, and a senior totem warrior who was not inferior to him. Such a person should appear here. And when did they arrive? Bien was thinking about how to deal with the senior, intermediate, and ferocious beast in front of him. However, he saw several figures rushing out of the forest one after another. Bang, bang, bang. Almost in the same way, they rushed out and stood still in an instant. The ground shook many times. The people of the Wan Shi tribe were so shocked that they forgot to count. Bien's eyelids kept twitching. Senior, senior, and senior. These people who came out were all senior totem warriors. Bien felt that the muscles on his back became stiff. Even a movement of twisting his neck became difficult. This situation was simply too shocking for him. While the people of the Wan Shi tribe were stunned, Xiao Xian looked at these Yinjiao warriors. Since they could come here, they must have dealt with the people in the forest. Xiao Xian and the others did not speak. After all, Ao was still here. With a gloomier and fiercer face than Bien, Ao held the spear in his hand. Clang! A deep mark appeared on the ground in front of Ao. It was obviously made by the spear. The mark was less than 2 meters long under his feet. However, in the eyes of everyone who saw this scene, this line seemed to extend out. Anyone who enters the forest, kill. Every single word was like a heavy blow to his heart. The fearsome beast forest was the boundary between life and death. Following Ao's words, more than 30 people came out of the forest and stood in a row. There were not many of them. They were more than 10 meters away from each other. Compared to the people of the Wan Shi tribe, it was very sparse. However, when the invisible aura spread out, it seemed to build a high and heavy wall, a barrier that could not be climbed. Even though they were so far away, the people of the Wan Shi tribe still wanted to step back. It was too uncomfortable to face this pressure. Looking at the mark on the ground and looking up at the row of people, the people of the Wan Shi tribe swallowed their saliva. These people with strange totem patterns still had a lot of blood on them. It was as if they had just been washed by the evaporation of blood. They had never seen such fierce eyes. It was as if they were facing the ferocious beasts in the fearsome beast forest. Facing the merciless ruthlessness, they could not help but be deeply afraid, even if they had sabers in their hands. These people were different from the people of other tribes they had seen. They did not fight. Their aura alone was enough to make them want to retreat. Fuji's face became uglier. Pulling the restless Wan Shi beast beside him, Feng Xiu's eyes twitched continuously. The sudden appearance of these people who dared to challenge him made him angry, and his expression became extremely ferocious. However, behind the anger, there was a trace of fear that was spreading. It was a kind of intuition. Although the two sides had not really fought and killed each other, Fuji really did not have confidence in facing these people. In addition, how many more people like them were there in the forest? How many more had not shown their killing weapons? Even in the depths of his heart, Fuji was glad that these people only drew the boundary in the forest. Although he was not confident, as the chief of the tribe, he could not retreat even if he could not move forward. He could not show weakness verbally. Under the influence of all kinds of emotions, Fuji's face was a little stiff. "You'd better not go out of the forest." After saying this, Fuji pulled the one-sure beast fiercely and roared, "Let's go." Ao suppressed the desire to fight with these people and said to himself in the bottom of his heart, bear it. Now is not the time. One-sure tribe, just wait. When the fire in the old land is reignited, when the wanderers come back and the tribe is stable, we will take revenge. Let's go back," Ao said to the others. Xiao Xian glanced at the direction of the one-sure tribe, patted Caesar, and turned to follow Ao back to the fearsome beast forest. From the beginning to the end, except for Caesar, none of the ferocious beasts in the forest appeared in front of the one-sure people, and the one-sure people who had seen them were speechless. Chapter 247. When Xiao Xian returned to the old land with Ao and the others, the place that was full of gravel and debris had been cleaned up. The decent weeds had been pulled out, and the dangerous plants in the surrounding woods had been cut down. As for the beasts, they had already run away. Many of them were in the pot. The place where the fire pit used to be had been piled up again. It was almost twice as big as the one on the other side of the river, and also the size of the original one. As long as the underground fire vein was still there, the fire pit could still be restored to its original state. The fire vein was left behind by the ancestors when they left in a hurry. It was a part of the fire seed. Perhaps the ancestors of Yinjiao left in a hurry because of the sudden natural disaster, but they did not expect that they would leave for nearly 1,000 years. During these years, the fire seed that had left had never returned. If they really wanted to move, it would take time to completely take the fire seed away. Just like on the other side of the river, the shaman took a long time to take the fire seed away from the fire pit, and then spent a lot of effort to completely remove the fire seed from the fire pit. Fortunately, now they were all back, and the fire vein was not completely destroyed. Although the fire pit had been rebuilt, the fire seed had not been ignited in it for the time being. The shaman had to hold a sacrificial ceremony and then ignite the fire seed in the fire pit to connect it to the fire vein. The surrounding people had already started to cut down trees to build houses, and the strong totem warriors were carrying stones. The shaman stayed in the carriage and did not come out. When Xiao Xian came back, Gui Zhe was jumping out of the carriage with the processed herbs. "What's wrong?" Xiao Xian looked at the wooden carriage and asked Gui Zhe. "The shaman is in a bad mood." Gui Zhe sighed. It was not easy to come back here, and seeing the mess, it would be strange if the shaman was in a good mood. Moreover, according to the shaman style, everything he saw and felt should be recorded in the Wu Roll and passed down in the future. Xiao Xian knocked on the door frame of the carriage. "Come in." The voice from inside did not sound happy or angry. It was hard to tell whether he was happy or angry. When it came to this old man, it meant that he was unhappy. Sure enough, after Xiao Xian went in, he saw the shaman riding on a roll of animal skin. "How is it?" the shaman asked without raising his head. Xiao Xian briefly explained the situation. "Ao is right. We still need some time to catch our breath." The shaman then asked, "Can you copy that stone pillar?" "Yes. However, it would take some time." The stone was not easy to find, and it also needed to be excavated. "Why don't I go look for him now?" Seeing the broken stone pillar, Xiao Xian didn't feel good. 2 years ago, when he came here, the stone pillar was like a landmark. He even sat on it. The shaman shook his head. "No, let's put that aside for now. When the fire is ignited, the first thing the tribe needs to do is to go out and meet the returning wanderers. When the fire was reignited in the old land, the wanderers who had left would come back. This was what Old He had told Xiao Xian. What about the time of the sacrifice? Xiao Xian asked. Tomorrow night. The time of the sacrifice was set. Now everyone had to prepare for the sacrifice as they had done in previous years. They took water to wash the stains on their bodies and clothes, and prepared the sacrificial animal clothes. But this time, there weren't as many steps as there had been at the beginning of the year. They just needed to ignite the fire in the fire pit of the old land. The next night, after washing and changing into the sacrificial animal clothes, the Yinjiao tribesmen gathered around the fire pit, including the wanderers who had joined the team later. As for the wanderers outside the Yinjiao tribe, they didn't join in, but just stayed aside and watched. In the sacrifice, the more important the person was, the closer to the fire pit. Even in a different place, this rule still existed. Xiao Xian was the only intermediate totem warrior in the group closest to the fire pit. The cart with the fire pit was already next to them. The atmosphere around was quiet and solemn. The wanderers who were a little further away stared at the fire pit and didn't dare to say a word. This was not the original mountain, and the place where they were now was not the top of the mountain. Looking around, in the distance there were mountains around. In comparison, this place was at a lower place, and with the surrounding woods, it was not conspicuous. Amidst the silence, the shaman carefully got into the car. After a while, he got out of the car with a small flame in his hand. However, this flame was twice as big as the one he had left the other side of the river, and it was still dancing in his hand. As the shaman approached the fire pit step by step, a flame appeared in the fire pit and broke out of the ground. Then, from the center of the flame, 6 fire lines were divided into 6 directions. Each fire line passed through the crowd standing around and spread further away. The closer the shaman was to the fire pit, the brighter the flame in the fire pit, and the thicker the 6 fire lines were. When the shaman walked into the fire pit and put the fire pit in the center of the fire line, a beam of flame rushed up to the sky, like a tower of thousands of feet. It was very eye-catching in the dark night. The shaman, who had left the fire pit, knelt on the ground with the others and welcomed the reigniting of the fire pit with the highest ceremony of the tribe. In the fire pit, the fire pillar quickly became thicker and spread to the whole fire pit. The rolling flame covered the rolling mountains in the distance with a layer of fire, like a sudden wonder of heaven and earth. The flame was all over the sky, but not a single leaf was burned. Not only that, the flame in the fire pit spread along the 6 fire lines. Each fire line was like a fuse, which led the fire of the fire pit to the distance in an instant. And the flame from the ground fire line was like a giant magic weapon that suddenly appeared in the world. It split the black night sky into 6 parts, showing an indescribable majestic scene of heaven and earth. The wanderers on the edge suddenly felt their bodies shake, and their spirits were shocked. The surrounding momentum made them tremble, and they felt their hair stand up. They had never seen such a situation. The fire pit, this was the power of the fire pit. It made people have an impulse to worship it immediately. Only this kind of fire pit could drive away the ferocious beasts. Only this kind of fire pit could protect the tribe and reproduce in this forest. Xiao Xian watched the strange changes of the fire pit and felt that the totem power in his body was surging with the rising flame, little by little. Once the totem flame in his mind was like a rootless floating object drifting erratically. But now, it seemed to have found a support and a point to rely on. It was stable, and the flame was higher. Since the fire pit and the fire line were connected, Xiao Xian felt that his body was in a state of extreme excitement, and the totem in his mind was also in a constant state of excitement. The totem power in his body, from little drops, became surging like a river, running endlessly in his body, as if it was going to come out from every pore. The totem patterns on his body became deeper and clearer. His heart was beating strongly. His blood seemed to be boiling. All the emotions were ignited in an instant. Although Ao was still kneeling on the ground, his upper body stood up. He looked up at the fire tower in the fire pit. raised his arms high, and roared loudly. Because of the excessive emotion, his voice was obviously hoarse. It sounded like he was venting, but also like he was calling. The surging totem power, along with the boiling blood, bloomed and rushed out through the skin of his body. On his body, under the light of the fire, the sacrificial animal suit was shocked by the airflow around the totem warrior, and suddenly there were cracks on it. The ground where he was kneeling was impacted by the erupting airflow. Gravel and dust flew everywhere, and the flying sand was quickly engulfed and swallowed by the raging flames. After AO, the team leader, the leader of the hunting group, and the hunting warriors also roared one after another. Their voices, accompanied by the light of the fire, echoed in the forest. A sense of pride that they had never felt before welled up in their hearts. In the heart of every Yinjiao tribesman, there was a sense of honor and pride as a Yinjiao. This sense of pride had never disappeared and had lasted from the tribe thousands of years ago to the present. They observed with their eyes and felt with their hearts. There was an invisible force around them, which made every blood vessel, every muscle, every bone, and even all the spirit quickly merge with this force. Xiao Xian looked in the direction of the fire pit, listening to the roars around him. With a smile in his eyes, he roared with them, sharing the excitement with them. The shaman looked at the flames that filled his eyes. He looked at the familiar two-horn totem in the middle of the fire pit. Tears flashed in his eyes. We are still strong, and we have never forgotten. Our glory is still there, but we came back a little late. At the same time, in the Wanshi tribe, the Wanshi shaman and the chief Bian looked at the small flame in the fire pit with gloomy faces. Not only the Wanshi tribe, but also other tribes could feel it, especially the tribes in the central region. Those big tribes felt it most clearly. The fire in their fire pits had been swayed because of this. Only a powerful fire could cause such a phenomenon. Who was it? In the whole central region, except for the few known people, who else could do this? Many people were puzzled. In a place farther away from the ferocious beast mountain forest, the shaman of the Mang tribe stood on a high mountain in the forest, glancing at the large green forest around, and then looked in one direction with a complicated smile in his eyes. Those barbarians really came back on the vast plateau in the Feng tribe. Oldie looked at the totem patterns on his body that were clearer than before. His shriveled and wrinkled face trembled, and then he knelt down deeply in one direction. Drops of tears fell into the grass and seeped into the soil. How many years had it been? Finally it came. Oldie pulled his wife and grandson to kneel down. After a long time, when the totem patterns on his body gradually disappeared, he stood up. The old lady wanted to help old he, who had been kneeling for a long time, but was pushed away by him. Now, he felt full of strength. Although he was far less than those totem warriors, he was much better than before. He could even carry a bucket without trembling. Seeing that he was too excited and his body was still trembling, the old lady asked worriedly, "How do you feel?" Oldie straightened his back, holding his grandson who had grown much taller, and said loudly, "Hungry." The old lady, "Pack up, we have to go back." Oldie said he had met several Yinjiao tribesmen from other tribes during the trading time of the grassland tribes. They had agreed that if they could really wait until the day when the fire in the old land was reignited, they would team up and go back together. Chapter 248. People in the Yinjiao tribe didn't know how many people lost sleep that night, nor did they know what the other tribes thought. Their thoughts were simple. Whatever the shaman and the chief told them to do, they just did. They didn't need to think about other things. They just needed to do their best. When the fire was reignited, everyone felt that their totem power had changed a lot, and it was a good change. That night, to the shaman and the chief's delight, another 7 people were promoted to senior totem warriors. When they absorbed the fire crystals, they didn't directly break through and were stuck until now. Unexpectedly, they succeeded that night. Many people in the tribe said that when the fire returned to the old land, it was complete and the ancestors' wish was fulfilled. However, Xiao Xian felt that although the fire seemed to be stronger than before, it was still incomplete. Only half of the fire seed that had been split into two had returned to the old land. The shaman didn't tell them, because even the shaman himself didn't know where the other half was, and he couldn't feel it. In the morning, Xiao Xian got up early. He wanted to help old Ku build a house, but he was summoned before he started. Near the fire pit, there was a half-built stone house. It was for the shaman. Other people's houses could be delayed, but the shaman's house couldn't be neglected. The warriors who built the house didn't sleep all night, but they were not tired. They were still excited. When Xiao Xian arrived, there were more than 30 people gathered around. "Uncle Mai, why did the shaman call us here?" Xiao Xian asked in a low voice. "It seems to be about helping the wanderers." Mai replied, "So fast." Xiao Xian thought that the shaman would send people out when the house was almost finished. Because they had been in contact with many wanderers like this, everyone knew their fighting strength. They were stronger than those who had not awakened their totem power, but they were still inferior to the real totem warriors. The shaman hoped that everyone would help them, as many as they could. The shaman and the chief had been discussing this matter after the ceremony last night, and the list had been finalized. Xiao Xian looked at the people who had been called over. He was familiar with all the people gathered around the microphone. They were all from his previous hunting group. It seemed that they had to go out as a hunting group. When almost everyone had arrived, Ao called everyone over. There was a piece of wood erected there and a few pieces of gravel piled up beside it. Ao went over and stepped on the gravel. He unfolded the animal skin scroll in his hand and hung it on the top of the wood so that the people who were called over could see the drawings on it. What was drawn on the animal skin scroll was a simple map. This was the map that Xiao Xian had completed after collecting new information on the way to the old haunt. Ao drew 10 copies of these maps. There were about 500 people who were called over. Each team of 50 people would act in a team. There were exactly 10 teams, and each team would have one map. The leaders were all former leaders of the 10 hunting groups. The route had already been marked on the animal skin scroll, and each team was responsible for one route. While assigning tasks, Ao gave a simple explanation of the route for each team. The tribes around the route had been marked. Perhaps not all of them were marked, but the important ones were all marked. "Xian, you go with Mai and the others. Take them to the grassland and meet the wanderers there. You have been there once, so you are more familiar with it than them." Ao said, "Okay." Xiao Xian thought of the old man who sang the hunting song on the mountain. He wondered how the wanderers on the grassland were doing. Had they set off? Would he meet them? After assigning tasks, Ao asked everyone to go back and prepare. They would set off tomorrow. The 10 leaders were left behind. Ao had something to say to them. When they went out, the 10 leaders would still be in charge of the team. They had to know many things that were inconvenient for others to know. They had just arrived here and were not used to many things. This place was not like before, where they only needed to hunt ferocious beasts. Now, they had to guard against people. Most of the time, people were more dangerous than ferocious beasts. At the same time, they had to adapt to the rules here. "Xian, you stay too," Ao said. In terms of understanding of this place, Xiao Xian was not as familiar as Ao. In fact, Xiao Xian did not know much. But after hearing a lot, he summed up some things, such as the gossip Yang Sui had told him, the relationship between each tribe, who were more famous, and so on. After assigning tasks, Ao asked the 10 leaders to leave, but Xiao Xian still stayed. "Anything else?" Ao asked, puzzled. "Well, leader, I was thinking when we go to the grassland, I want to see if we can exchange for some livestock, such as horses, cows, and sheep. Although the Lu tribe also has some, I think the breeds on the grassland are more suitable for us." Xiao Xian said. Ao's eyes flashed, and he nodded. Yes, the tribe does need some livestock. Here, there would be more and more people. People in the tribe could not focus all their energy on hunting like before. The situation here was more complicated. Besides, there would be more and more people in the tribe who could not awaken their totem power. Whether it was the wanderers from the Yinjiao tribe who came back or the other wanderers who depended on them, the number would increase. They also needed to consider the placement of these people. They could not just let them live in the tribe without working or contributing. Just as they had discussed before, the rearing and planting of the plants would be distributed to these people. They could not go out to hunt, but they could not even farm and raise livestock. The situation here was better than on the other side of the river. Some people who knew how to make pottery had already started making, and they were very successful. Others also needed something to do. It would take too much time to completely tame wild animals. It was better to exchange some with people directly. You are right. Okay, I agree. Go. Ao said. Xiao Xian did not move. Ao waited for a while, but still did not see Xiao Xian leave. He looked up and asked, anything else? Xiao Xian twisted his fingers. Boss, water moonstones. Of course, he was waiting here to apply for public funds. Ao suddenly understood. He just said that the other team leaders needed to get used to it as soon as possible, but he did not think of it himself. Here, to get something, they had to take out other things to trade with others. It was not like in the old tribe where they could just use a few simple stones or a few wild animals. Many people did not accept food at all. Wait, I will get it. Ao walked to the shaman. All the water moonstones were in the shaman's wooden cart. Xiao Xian left Ao's place with a share of water moonstones, and 9 more for the other teams. He also told them what Ao Wang said. They did not need to bring livestock like Xiao Xian did. It would be better if they could buy some seeds. They did not know which plants in the forest could be planted. The species were not stable. What if they died from eating the plants? People who had not awakened their totemic power were not as strong as totemic warriors. Many tribes control their seeds very well and sold them at a high price. They did not even reveal how to plant them. When the time came, they would have to figure it out by themselves. After giving out the 9 water moonstones, Xiao Xian went to find Mai. He saw Yang Guang and his sister talking to Mai. Yang Guang and his sister were not among the people who went out this time. Not only them, but also the people who raised the ferocious beasts, except for Xiao Xian, could not go out. They and the ferocious beasts all had to stay in the camp. More than half of the people in the advance group had to stay, including the 2 team leaders. Mai was annoyed by the siblings and said, I can't do anything. If you want to talk, go to the chief. The people who went out were all personally selected by Ao. Even if they had objections, they had to go to the chief. But it was useless. Since the chief made this choice, he must have his own considerations. Otherwise, why didn't anyone dare to go to the chief when there were so many people who wanted to go out with him? Xiao Xian saw Yang Guang and his sister's bitter faces, and the 2 ferocious beasts who were so bored that they were kicking stones. He smiled and said, you stay in the tribe. You have to guard against invaders. After what happened in the drumming tribe, Yang Guang and his sister had a clear idea of invaders. Thinking of the Wan Shi tribe, which was not far from here, Yang Guang and his sister narrowed their eyes. They thought that it was better to stay. Maybe they could catch some invaders. The next day, Xiao Xian said goodbye to Old Ku and left the tribe with Mai and the others. Caesar followed, and Cha-Cha flew in the sky. Caesar had already shown his face, so he did not intend to hide. As for Cha-Cha, except for Xiao Xian, it did not listen to anyone. The others in the tribe could not do anything to it. As for the tribe's aerial warning mission, Gigu's white falcon was there, so there was no need to worry. After being frightened, the people of the Wan Shi tribe did not dare to go into the mountains in a short time, not to mention that their fire seed had been reignited. The places covered by the strong fire seed were unfavorable to the people of other tribes. The closer they were to the fire seed, the more their totemic power would be affected and their fighting power would be weakened. This was another reason why small tribes were easier to destroy and big tribes were stronger, because the fire seed of big tribes was stronger. Although it was a short time, it was obvious that the shaman and the chief were in a hurry. Fortunately, because of the reignited fire seed, everyone was not tired at all. Instead, they were full of energy, especially those who were on the list. They were more excited at the thought of meeting more people and things from other tribes. They were also envied by those who stayed in the tribe. Xian, how long will it take for us to reach the grassland? Can we come back before winter? Lang Jie, who was carrying the equipment, could not help but ask. It's a bit far, but we can definitely come back before winter. Even if we can't, the winter here is not as cold as the winter on the other side of the river, and there are no ferocious beasts. We can handle it, Xiao Xian said. That's good. Lang Jie looked expectant again. A long time ago, his goal was to become an intermediate totemic warrior in his lifetime. Now, he was already an intermediate totemic warrior. He also felt that he might be able to become a senior totemic warrior in the future. My father said that we are the generation blessed by our ancestors. Lang Jie said with emotion. The others also agreed. But no one noticed that Caesar, who was walking in front, snorted with a trace of disapproval in his eyes. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.